In February, the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl for John. And then last weekend, we saw back-to-back championships come home to Foursquare Sports. The New York Knicks winning the NBA Finals in 5 games over the San Antonio Spurs. And we saw the Carolina Hurricanes knock off the Vegas Golden Knights in 6. Back-to-back days. That's something that you can't really ask much more than that. And while 3 of us have championships this year, one of us is still waiting. Can you guess who?
Well, yeah. Yankees, you have 4 months to respond. Don't screw this up.
Don't screw it up, Yanks. Come on. You're next.
Please. Don't screw this up. Please don't screw this up. All right, we got a dual championship celebration. I wish I had Sweet Victory playing, but we're gonna stay with the original intro because we don't want to get with the copyright. Let's play the intro. Let's do it.
5 football's almost as bad as amateur wrestling.
There's a lot that needs to be fixed.
What are we even hearing about?
Tiny rant here. I can't. Brian Cashman is as dumb as a doornail.
The U.S. will beat Canada in the gold medal game. Guarantee!
Get Anthony Volpe off of my team.
Just give me my team.
Where's SpongeBob SquarePants when you need him? Oh, man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Foursquare Sports, our 50th episode. And what better way to have our 50th episode than in this fashion, a dual championship celebration. And in the spirit of SpongeBob, like Kevin suggested, it will be called Sweet Victory! Yeah! This is my best impression of that. It's the artist who sings that song. I don't know the actual person who sings that song, but Kevin Zelicskovics representing the New York Knicks, Alec Nava representing the Carolina Hurricanes. Both of them went to their respective teams' parades. Kevin, I'm going to talk to you first. Since you and I were at the Knicks parade, there were 2 million people there. A lot of craziness. We weren't in the best spot, but we did see a couple craziness, right?
Well, first of all, to answer your first question before I talk about the Knicks, David Glenn Isley and Bob Kulick are the 2 guys who wrote the song "Sweet Victory." Anyways, after talk about the Knicks, yeah, the parade was insane. It was 2 million people. The final tally is what I saw. It felt like it. Like me and you were both in the middle of it. Like there was barely any breathing room. Like I could barely move my arms because people were right here. Like they were practically touching you. Everyone was shoving each other pretty much. And I could barely even move my arm up to raise my phone to do a video. Like that's how close everyone was. And then we ended up in a kind of a bad spot. And we couldn't really move from where we were because the police blocked every direction off. So we couldn't really go anywhere else. And it was just crazy madness. You saw people climbing scaffolding. You saw people climbing light poles, traffic lights. You even saw someone climbing a tree. Look, kids were doing that too. They were climbing a traffic light. They climbed up the scaffolding. I'm like, where are your parents? I'm like, this is crazy. I feel like go out, son. It's fine. This was 53 years. You're never gonna see this again in your lifetime. And I feel like that's what happened. But it was absolutely insane.
Now, one thing I will say that was annoying about where we were, the amount of buses that passed by us.
Oh, dude, it was like Alex. To give you a perfect example, we had to go. The police were telling us to get back so we can have room for the police cars and the buses to go through where we were, and it was empty buses or I don't know who the heck was in them. It certainly wasn't the players. It was I want to say 20 buses that passed back and forth through where we were. And it was just like nonsense because like I don't know what those buses were for. I felt like they were kind of like circling around the street for no reason. It was just nonsense. And I was like, oh my God, how many buses left? I mean, like I just want to see the parade. And like it was really annoying. But like at least we got to enjoy the experience when all was said and done.
And to wrap up everything to describe the experience, a Starbucks employee was on top of a building.
Yeah, he was one of the many people who were climbing the scaffolding where we were and like getting on top of the thing. And it was a Starbucks employee. He got there by himself, and everyone was cheering him on. And he was like, "Yeah, Knicks in 5, Knicks in 5." And then, like people like where we were standing, they were like, "Starbucks in 5, Starbucks in 5." And then the guy left like out of sight. And then people like where we were, they were like, "We want Starbucks. We want Starbucks." It was like a crazy scene. That guy's probably going to go viral like over Twitter overnight. I'm sure he's having a great time.
While it is good the fact that these people are doing it, don't post it on LinkedIn. You'll probably get fired from your job.
You know what? The way he was climbing and the way he was celebrating, I don't think he's even going to care if he gets fired from Starbucks.
All right. So, yes, there was 2 million people in New York City. Now we're going to go to North Carolina side of things. Alec told us before we came on that there were 150,000 people in the Raleigh area for this Canes parade. Alec, am I right?
Yes, the largest ever gathering in the history of the city of Raleigh, at least in the downtown part, for a parade. That's 3/10 of the entire population of the city, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, 150,000. The Raleigh population right now is 500,000. And we've waited 20 years for the Stanley Cup to come home. And the boys of the Canes in jerseys, they were shirtless. They all agreed to take the tarps off. That was a saying that was said ahead of game 2 of the final. And they did take the tarps off. Some of them already had their beard shaven off, like Jordan Stahl, Keandre Miller, some of them. But others, they decided to keep them off. And Seth Jarvis said that it's funny about the whole tarps out because I look like I'm homeless. Keandre Miller looks like I'm a Greek god when you see the tarps off, for that matter.
Oh, God.
There were some Hurricanes fans who were stomping on a Mikko Rantanen Hurricanes jersey out on the street before all of the buses came through. You know, that's how much Canes fans hate him. And you know what? I'm going to say, thank you, Mikko. Thank you for turning us down, because without that, we wouldn't have gotten Logan Stankoven. We wouldn't have gotten 2 first-round picks. We wouldn't have gotten the cap space necessary to trade for and extend Keandre Miller, and the cap space necessary to sign Nikolai Ehlers. Oh, one more thing. Extending Taylor Hall, who was originally a throw-in in the original Mikko Rantanen trade. So thank you, Mikko, for spurning us at the altar. That led us to this moment. And also, I want to give a special thank you to Eric Tulsky, all the boys, and even the fans who had some of the most savages his posters in the parade, including my personal favorite, Tortorella. Want your clothes back? Call 1-800-CANES-IN-6.
That's great. I love that.
I'll tell you what, there are some sports fans who are very, very silly when it comes to celebrating championships. One thing I will say about what New York did and what Charlotte did, or Raleigh did, they celebrated their championships responsibly.
Absolutely.
And you know what? That's how it should be.
Yes, sir. Oh, man.
Now here's how this show is going to go. We could get into the World Cup, and we could get into Major League Baseball, but because we got 2 championships to celebrate and commemorate and remember, we're going to go over the championships. We're going to start off with the Hurricanes, and then we're going to go into the second half of the show. And if there is time, we'll do First Founder Friday. Now, Major League Baseball and World Cup stuff, we will get into next episode. We will do that because this is too precious. This is something that you probably will never see again. Because a championship drought of 20 years and a championship drought of 53 years came to an end last weekend. And one thing I will say, Rob Brindamore and Mike Brown deserve all the flowers they got this entire weekend, because
Absolutely.
they both did incredible jobs taking their teams to the promised land. Rob Brindamore specifically, he's been associated with the Canes mostly his entire life. And he won as a player. Now he won as a coach.
Not just as a player, as a captain, too.
As a captain. That's even more
Right.
significant. Okay. We will get into all this right now. So we're going to start off this show with the Hurricanes. Alec, I hope you're ready for this because this is all you. The biggest hockey fan that we know, and you got your flowers from the Hurricanes. And we're going to start off the journey. So the Canes started the season 5-0. And then they went undefeated in February, but there is a little bit asterisk next to February because there was during the Winter Olympic break when the players had to go to play Olympic winter hockey. But when you saw the Canes get off to a hot start, Alec, did you have optimism right away?
What I said after last season that after the Eastern Conference Final exit of Florida Panthers, Eric Tulsky needed to do this. Go big game hunting. It was the one way in which we're going to be seen as serious Stanley Cup contenders. And he answered with Keandre Miller and Nikolai Ehlers. Losing Dmitry Orlov and Brent Burns were whatever. Losing Jack Roslovic was whatever. It's just at excess goods for that matter. Mikko Rantanen will probably start. Rob Brendamore's system rewards players who play a two-way style of play, offensive and defensive. Rantanen was a one-dimensional offensive style of player, and we had to ship him off for that matter because he said, I don't want to play here. And we got what we could with Stankoven and 2 first-round picks. That was such a good haul. And but looking back at starting off undefeated 5-0 and undefeated in February, keep this in mind, Matt. Carolina did not lose back-to-back games since mid-January. That even includes the stretch in which we went on a 16-3 run in the playoffs. So there was optimism that the Hurricanes could go deep here. The Florida Panthers, they're out the picture. The New York Rangers, they're out the picture. The Panthers especially, they're in a season where they lost as many man games as Gustav Forsling's entire NHL career. The Hurricanes were up against it, and were under the largest amount of pressure in the Eastern Conference. Same situation as the Buffalo Bills were this year, because like the Bills, the biggest nemesis in the way are out the picture. In the Bills' case was the Chiefs. And you can say either one of the Bengals or the Ravens. So the Bengals is a little more so, but not by much. But in our case, it was the Rangers and the Panthers. The Panthers especially because they went on to go to the Stanley Cup Final 2 of the 3 times in which we faced up against them. The system's working and all the line combinations were working. The continuity is there. And I didn't even mention one other player who we added. Alexander Nikishin, who came in on an entry-level contract mid-playoffs last year, by the way. And he's shown early on. He showed that he can be part of this core. And he got named to the all-rookie team as one of the 2 defensemen alongside Matthew Schaefer, who was 1 vote away from being unanimous. And being on the all-rookie team means you're doing something special with this core. And that he was. So whether he be on regular strength, power play, he's shown that he can be the future of this defensive core. Jacob Slavin wasn't healthy until later in the season. He missed his services for a long time. He wasn't 100% this season, but in the Olympics, he showed what he can be, even if he's not 100%. And Keandre Miller was admirably good filling in for Slavin.
The Canes had a lot of depth. And I'm looking at their stats right now. They didn't have anyone who was overwhelmingly good. Like, they wouldn't show up in the top 20 in terms of stats for individual players. But they did have well-rounded. Like, I'm looking at their top point scores. Sebastian Aho had 80 points. Then Ehlers had 71. Svechnikov had 70. And then Seth Jarvis had 66. Although when Seth Jarvis got to the playoffs, he turned it on. Why was it so important for this team to be balanced, even though they weren't collectively as a whole?
Is to have a team that can roll out all 4 forward lines. That's what matters a lot. You have to have a well-balanced and well-coached system up and down the line. I mean, that's the importance of having Rod Brind'Amour. There were talks about him leaving the team after we lost to the Rangers in 2024.
I
He
remember that.
stayed, and we got rewarded for that with the deep playoff run that we had last year, where we knocked off the Devils and Capitals in 5 each before running into the Panthers juggernaut. And yes, that we can roll out 4 forward lines with ease. It shows that this team is well structured. Aho, 80 points. He hasn't had a 100-point season yet, but he's had the right line mates throughout this run. Throughout, Andrei Svechnikov has been his most common line mate throughout his career. The two of them gel together like peanut butter and jelly. Nikolai Ehlers can fit anywhere on the top 9. We decided to put him on the third line throughout the playoffs next to Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook. And that added a scoring touch on that third line because Ehlers can play defense. And yes, he has the speed attached to him. Jordan Martinook can also bring energy onto him. He is a speed guy. Jordan Staal, heavy forechecker and easily the team's best faceoff man. And he's the team captain, setting the tone for the play. Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake, the moment they got put together with Taylor Hall, oh man. The words I'm about to say in this playoff run can fill up an entire essay about this second line. It's been phenomenal for this run. And I was thinking Taylor Hall was going to win the Conn Smythe. Well, it turned out to be Jordan Staal. And I didn't even get to the fourth line. William Carrier, Mark Jankowski, Eric Robinson. Carrier was the original misfit. He brought that grittiness over to Carolina, and he was exactly what he needed. I'm going to tell you again, originally at the deadline, there were 2 guys who I wanted Carolina to get. Jordan Binnington and Scott Lawton. We didn't get either of them. However, Mark Jankowski made me eat my words about Scott Lawton because Jankowski has been excellent defensively, and he's rewarded with a contract extension. Remember this. 2 years ago, I think, Jankowski looked like he was going to be out of the NHL entirely because he was playing in the AHL with the Milwaukee Admirals, with the Nashville Predators organization. He got called up to Nashville, and he did shine some bits. He was acquired by Carolina for a 5th-round pick, and he proved his worth as a forechecking 4th liner that can bring energy. Same thing with Robinson, who's exploded for 12 goals in this regular season, and he took his game up a notch in the postseason.
So the balanced attack that Carolina had, it was so perfect. And I think they played in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference as a whole is not exactly overwhelmed. Like, I would say the Eastern Conference is not as good as the Western Conference. I mean, the Western Conference, you had the Central Division, which was a juggernaut division filled with the Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild, and it just felt like at that point Carolina had it made for them because Florida had the injury-plagued season, and then the Rangers fell off a cliff entirely. Tampa Bay was knocked out early, so this almost felt like championship or bust for the Canes in a sense when you saw how bad Florida was playing.
Yeah, with how bad Florida was, even with all those injuries, it felt like a championship or bust year for Carolina. Even for when all the pundits were expecting that the Ottawa series was going to go deep. And I'm going to admit something. The Atlantic Division was stacked too. You got Tampa, who's so Tampa, even though now they trade away Darren Raddysh to the Maple Leafs. That's for another episode, by the way. The Buffalo Sabres had their revival. The Montreal Canadiens took their next step on their contention window. And I will admit, Montreal was the team I was scared of the most out of the Atlantic teams when they made it to the Eastern Conference Final. But yes, we took care of them. That's going to come later. The Western Conference, I was like, we're going to face off against one of the Central teams if we were to make it deep. I was expecting an all-WHA final between Carolina and Colorado. That was in my second bracket, by the way. because in
Yes.
my first bracket, I had Minnesota prevailing in the Western Conference.
You
Because the
did.
consensus was there would be you want the Central Division teams coming out the Western Conference. Nobody expected a team from the Pacific Division. Do I need to get it out?
I might get it too.
I'll get it out. The pillow
Hello?
fight. Yep.
The soft
Yep.
pillow, the pillow division.
Yep. Yep. The pillow fight of a Pacific Division. Nobody thought the Vegas Golden Knights would come out there. Not even us. But oh my goodness. Did they just ever embarrass the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference Final? But it feels like all the stars were aligning here. And people can talk about the legitimacy of this playoff run. You only play who's in front of you.
Yes. And that theme will come back when we get to the Knicks. But now I want to go through the actual playoff run for the Carolina Hurricanes. The first series it looked like it was going to be a cake. It looked like it could be a little bit difficult because the Ottawa Senators were one of the hottest teams in the NHL going into the playoffs. But when they faced Carolina just dismantled them. They smoked them. And if you want to know the scores of those 4 games, I will tell you right now. So the first round was won 2-0, 3-2, 2-1, 4-2. Those 4 games. Now, what did Carolina do in that series that made Ottawa look pathetic?
So people were saying that this series was going to be tight, myself included. Ottawa's hot heading into the season, but the key here is locking up their star players. That meant Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson. You want to pressure the puck carriers. Carolina would always run on the puck carriers deep. Excuse me for that. They would always run the puck carriers deep behind the net, pressure them, one coming from one side, the other coming from the other. As they have them accounted for, there'll be another guy who will pressure the eventual puck carrier on the recipient should it be kicked out towards the outside. It's about forcing players to the outside. Constant and relentless pressure that Rod Brittamore applies. The Hurricanes know that the Panthers are the standard, and they know about that. We don't know about next year is going to be, but Ottawa knows that, yes, they modeled their style against the Hurricanes, but this series shows why the student will still be the student until proven otherwise, because the Hurricanes are the teacher. The openings face-off of the entire playoffs, which was the first shift of this game, saw Jordan Stahl completely pound Brady Tkachuk into a pulp. On the very first shift, by the way, he said, "You want to go? Hey, I may be old, but I will drop the gloves with you." And he delivered it to him. Right off of the second most goals in the NHL, 291, he noted, top 10 in most categories in the NHL. And while Linus Olmark caught fire late, I have my question about Freddie Anderson, especially with his .874 save percentage. But the beauty of the playoffs is that any concerns about both teams is that goaltending questions, which are questions on both ends of the series, cancel each other out. And Freddie proceeded to be an absolute dynamo in net for the entire series, turning into a brick wall. Ottawa is running out defensemen, literally, by the way, because they're getting injured. Carolina was a remarkably healthier team, but they had the remarkably better defense, by the way. Slavin and Chatfield, Miller and Walker, those are 2 shutdown pairings in which they can go after anyone. And I mean anyone. And that showed here. And the big key here, that whole second line, as I said before.
Yep.
Steph Tobin scored in every single game of the Ottawa series. And the second game, which was the 3-2 final score, that was the game in which I thought Mark Jankowski won it in overtime, but it was offsides. Jordan Martinook, however, got a penalty shot because he was hooked on a breakaway.
Yep.
His attempt was denied. However, he got his redemption in the second overtime. Set play. Keandre Miller holds left point. Sends it to a wide open Ehlers who cycles around. Martinook gets open in the slot. Ehlers finds him. Shoots it. Stahl with the screen in front. game over. Ullmark had no chance to see that. And Ottawa was limited to just one power play goal all series. Carolina's penalty killing shows a relentless box shape in which it was constant movement, cycling around to force everyone to the outside. This is how Carolina operates as a team, which carries over to the next series, Matt.
Yes, it does. So after sweeping the Senators to start the playoffs in dominant fashion, they outscored Ottawa 11-5, which is pretty impressive in a 4-game series. Then they faced another team that had momentum going into the second round of the playoffs, the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers coming into the second round, they beat Pittsburgh in the first round, one of Alec's other hockey teams. But they also went 12-3-1 in their final 16 regular season games to get that last playoff spot for third place in the Metro. However, the momentum that they seemed to build against Carolina was not great, apart from Game 2. Game 2 was the only time where Philadelphia actually looked like they could win. They were up 2-0 early, then they lost the lead. They lost in overtime 3-2. But 3-0, 3-2, 4-1, 3-2, again, outscoring Philadelphia 13-5. So they only allowed 5 goals again in another 4-game sweep. Alec, what did Carolina do right in the Philadelphia series?
Same thing as you want to cycle around on the penalty kill, force the puck carriers towards the outside. Philadelphia is promising here, and they have a very bright future of Trevor Zegras, Porter Martone, and Jamie Drysdale. What the future for Matvei Michkov holds is uncertain because for some reason Rick Tocchet does not like him. And I think the decision to scratch Michkov in Game 4 was a huge mistake. If you want someone with offensive skill, you keep him in the lineup so as to prioritize him over the puck carriers. He is offensively skilled, and you need to use him for the matter. Carolina uses his older players who will fit on the right skill sets and all. The second game was the only time in which the Hurricanes trailed at home in the first 2 rounds, because Game 2, the Hurricanes were down in the first period and for the first half of the second period before Jackson Blake tied it. And Freddie Anderson continued his dominating run, though there were signs that he may be slowing down. One can think about his age and the fact that he has had a lighter workload on him. 19 shots in Game 1 that he faced. His heaviest workload was Game 2. He turned away 34-36. Game 3, turned away 18-19. Game 4, turned away 15-17. So 3 to 4 games, he's had a light workload. That's more of a defensive effort in front of him. Slavin, Chatfield, Miller, Walker. That's where they come in. I didn't even mention a third pairing, Shane Gostisbehere and either one of Alexander Nikishin or Mike Riley. Why am I mentioning Mike Riley? Because Nikishin was injured in the Ottawa series. A rest helps Nikishin heal faster so that he doesn't have to be rushed back into the lineup quicker. And Riley stepped up big time here. The 8-0 start was the first time since the 1985 Oilers and the back sweeps. First time since the 1992 Penguins, for the matter. And the second line, once again, all had an overtime goal. Blake had the overtime series winner in Game 4. Taylor Hall, strong drive to the net off a 3-on-2 set up by Sean Walker as he and Blake were cutting towards the front. This second line has Hall bringing the skill guy. Stankoven would usually be the one driving to the net. Good thing he learned that well in his early years in Dallas, where he picked that up from none other than Joe Pavelski, who retired in Stankoven's first year in the NHL. But he learned that well. He's 5'8", but he plays taller than his height. Jackson Blake, another skill guy. He's the sniper of that group. He's the goal scorer. Stankoven's the net front presence. So everybody knows their role in each line. So whereas, and I mentioned the same case on the third line with Stahl being the net front presence. That's for a later time because this momentum is used to carry on over to the Eastern Conference Final against the team that scared me the most, Matt.
Yes. Now, I did in our bracket challenge, I did have Montreal winning the Eastern Conference Finals. In fact, I had them winning it all. But coming into the Eastern Conference Finals, the Carolina Hurricanes entered after an 11 or 12-day rest period. So then came game one, and Carolina's postseason winning streak came to an end, losing 6-2. This was a game where they weren't as sharp in game one, but I think it probably set the tone for adjustments, Alec.
Yeah, because that game one loss was because of rust. That's what we can say first and foremost here. That was as off balance as the Hurricanes were as I've seen them play in any postseason game. A 4-goal first period by Montreal exemplified just that. But the rest of the way, Montreal would score combined Montreal would score combined 7 goals the rest of the series, which would have been 8 had it not been for a disallowed goal from Noah Dobson in Game 3, a game which saw back-to-back overtime victories for the Hurricanes. Nikolai Ehlers had his best showing in a playoff game in Game 2. Half spin, then come back around in front, shift forehand, and sneak it past Jakub Dovic, who was playing his mind off in this entire postseason run. That Game 7 against Tampa was the stuff of legends. Same for the Game 7 against Buffalo. And then Game 3, adjust and continue the composure. Stay calm under pressure. Going into a Montreal crowd that's at its loudest in a while. Shane Gostisbehere got his first goal of the entire playoffs in that game. Taylor Hall continued his scoring streak in Game 3. Then Andrei Svechnikov, a high slot or right point, wrist one through traffic with Aho saying the screen. Montreal didn't leave the bench immediately because they thought there was goaltender interference. It was marginal contact, so not really much of interference. But the light workload for Freddie was a common theme here throughout the series. Freddie faced 21 shots in Game 1, faced just 12 shots in Game 2, another 12 shots in Game 3. Then in Game 4 was 18 shots. Game 5 was his heaviest workload, 24 shots. Montreal got desperate in the third period, but that was when the damage was already done, when it was already 5-0 Carolina, with Hall, Stankovic, and Blake each having a goal here. Game 4, Jordan Staal set up at the net front, with Keandre Miller setting him up. Cycle play. That's how sweet it was. On the power play, Gostisbehere to an approaching Ehlers who came off the bench, with Staal coming onto the bench. Normally we'd have Staal winning faceoffs on the power play, and on the first queer, he'll be the one coming to the bench to get Ehlers out, because Ehlers is the speed guy on the power play. Have him come out there and have Aho or Jarvis alternate for net front presence. You can have Svechnikov set up at front. He can also take shots from the right circle. That he did. But this time it was Aho. Staal was sitting up at the net front. Stankoven 2-on-1 in that same first period for those 3 goals. And in Game 5 was the most complete showing that I've seen of Carolina in this run.
Yes, it was.
Montreal was completely shut down all series. Couldn't even muster anything 5-on-5. And once again, it's the continuous and ruthless cycling on defense that's been showing throughout, even with Freddie Anderson slowing down. And we've seen him slow down at times going this deep into the playoffs. That was evident in the Stanley Cup final, where the first 3 games were just cinema.
Well, we'll get into the Stanley Cup Finals right now. So, after winning the Eastern Conference Finals, they found the Carolina Hurricanes come to know that their opponent for the Stanley Cup Finals was the Vegas Golden Knights, not the Colorado Avalanche, who were dealt with the injury bug in the WCF. So, yes, it was the Pacific-led Vegas Golden Knights with John Tortorella, their interim coach, to come in and play the Carolina Hurricanes. Game 1, the Canes lost 5-4 in a really hotly contested game, especially in the third period, where Tomas Hertl scored the game-winning goal in that. Game 2, Canes fought back 1-4-3. Game 3 was where things got a little bit concerning. First off, in Game 3, prior to Game 3, Danhausen, whose name you will hear later on in this episode, cursed the Carolina Hurricanes. And as you know, if you don't know who Danhausen is, he's a WWE superstar who has a tendency of putting curses on people, and it comes back to bite them in the neck if you've mess with Danhausen. But Danhausen's curse was only because someone requested him to do it. Danhausen had no ill matter intent. But anyway, in game 3, Vegas was up 4-0 early on, and then the Canes battled back to tie it at 4. But then they lost in double overtime in game 3 after Shea Theodore put the puck behind the net, and that put Vegas up 2-1. So after losing a game like that, Alec, where you fought back and fell short, how'd you feel at that point?
I was inclined to take the glass half full approach, Matt, if anything. So I was rather more optimistic after game 3, knowing that we fought back down 4-0, lost in double overtime, because when Brandon Bussey came in game 3, that's when I felt that momentum shifted. Vegas looked lost in that third period, and they were getting out of the composure, out of their comfort zone. Mitch Marner had a hat trick in the second period, the fastest hat trick in finals history. He only had 1 point the rest of the final. Carolina with 3 goals in 39 seconds in that third period. That was also the fastest set of 3 goals by any one team in the history of the Stanley Cup final. Now, I knew that the first goal set the tone, that the first game set the tone. Nikolai Ehlers scoring twice. The first one coming in 25 seconds in. That was the third fastest goal to open a Stanley Cup final, right behind Reggie Leach's 21 seconds, Sid Smith's 15 seconds. That was a back and forth game in which it was very close. I went with the glass half full approach for Carolina after the first game. But Freddie Anderson was visibly slowing down throughout this stage of the Stanley Cup final. And it may be evident that his time may be running out. Perhaps. We'll get to that later. Game 2 seemed like if Carolina would be up against the wall and things were not going our way. Brett Howden found the back of the net with ease here twice, getting loose for breakaways. Carolina was getting caught off guard on breakaways, and that's been happening too easily here. But Logan Stankoven and Mark Jankowski took it up a notch here for Carolina. Stankoven stole the puck from Rasmus Andersson, put it in the back of the net. Jankowski picks up the loose puck from William Carey as Carey got cross-checked by Jeremy Lozon in the blue line. Jankowski rips it off the bar and in. And then Jordan Staal off a failed challenge with John Tortorella, in which Torts was wanting to see if there was goaltender interference on the play. Nope, there wasn't. The whistle already blew before the puck went in the crease. And Staal set up at the net front, got the stick on Shane Gostisbehere's shot. We have a brand new hockey game. Mark Stone tied it. But Tomas Hertl was responsible for a tripping penalty, clear and obvious, in overtime, because usually referees are not going to call penalties in overtime in the playoffs unless it is clear and obvious. This time it was clear and obvious. Seth Jarvis set up top side left circle, wide open, game winner. Nikolai Ehlers jumped up to fake out Carter Hart, to have him think that Gostisbehere was taking a shot. In game 3, Carolina once again took advantage of Vegas' self-inflicted mistakes. That included a delay of game penalty from Shea Theodore that set up Andrei Svechnikov's first goal of the final. He had just 1 shot in the first 2 games combined between them. Even though Theodore's goal was a wacky one, I feel that there was a momentum shift with Bussey in net over Freddie here. Game 4 didn't look that way in the second period because Vegas owned the second period in the first 4 games of the final. Brett Howden finished with 14 goals. He scores 14 for the second period of game 4. But Logan Stankoven continues to strike to find the back of the net. Jackson Blake, same thing. Jordan Staal on a power play. And we're going to mention his name again here. Right off a bad turnover by Carolina, Seth Jarvis was on the receiving end as it went off a skate, and he gets denied on a breakaway off the turnover. As Carolina battles for the puck, they get it back far corner. Nikolai Ehlers sets up for Jordan Staal, who was falling down on his knees. Backhands it to a wide open net, bounces right in, and it's pandemonium in Raleigh. That's the best goal that he's ever scored in his career. And I don't think we'll see anything close to that in recent Carolina lore here. Game 5, as it shifts back to Raleigh, momentum from Vegas has been completely sapped. You want to know one of my underrated momentum changes here for the Hurricanes? Rob Brennamore's decision to swap Jarvis and Martinook in the lineup. Martinook was elevated to the first line with Aho and Svechnikov. That gave the Hurricanes a little boost on the top line, a little more speed to it. Jarvis was moved down to the third line next to Ehlers and Stahl. So someone that Jarvis is already familiar with, as Jarvis already played some time with Stahl earlier in the season. That was on the first game back from injury. I went to the game in which the Hurricanes played against the Dallas Stars and Mikko Rantanen's first game back in Carolina. That's when Logan Stankoven just danced around him for one of the prettiest goals of the season. And Jarvis was on the third line his first game back with Martinook and Stahl. Ehlers was on the first line. That was the inverse with Martinook and Ehlers in this case. But in game 5, Carolina had the best showing in the second period. Andrei Svechnikov struck twice on the power play, one time where he roofed a shot on the top side, and the other time where he was setting up on the net front on the receiving of the feed from Nikolai Ehlers. Ehlers joins Sam Reinhart and Connor McDavid as the only players of this decade to have multiple 3-point games in the Stanley Cup final. And that's talking this decade. So Ehlers with 3 assists here, and those are some pretty ones, of course, including Stahl, who was once again setting up at the net front, reaching out on a stick, receiving the pass from Ehlers, and Ehlers intended that to be a pass the whole way to Stahl. A Joe Pavelski-esque goal for Jordan Stahl. And Sebastian Aho, the other goal, that was intended to be a shot for Svechnikov from Jordan Martinook. That wasn't too far for Svechnikov. Sean Walker kept it in, finds Aho on the quick pass. Aho roofs it. No hesitation. And Bussy continues rolling on. The bus is not going to stop. On to game 6. What was the best I've seen Carolina in the final? Vegas got blanked. Of the 22 shots Vegas had, Bussy was spectacular. Every passing game, he found his confidence grow and grow and grow. And the Hurricanes took advantage of, once again, Vegas' self-inflicted mistakes. That carried on from game 5 where Lozon had a boneheaded roughing penalty. Braden McNabb cross-checking. Jack Eichel tripping. Mark Stone high-sticking. We talked about situational awareness. Stick discipline was also important. The first goal in game 6, Taylor Hall was injured earlier in the game. He had felt some discomfort on his arm, but he shook it off, and he was back like he never left. A stretch pass with Jacob Slavin found his stick on a breakaway, made no mistake. Stankoven and Blake worked hard for the second goal, which they were down deep. Blake set up at the slot. Stankoven found him, and Blake made no mistake from the slot, getting it past Hart. And Ehlers ended it. Based off of center ice. Carolina picks it up. Bingo. There's your cup clincher. And the Hurricanes celebrate with the Stanley Cup. Jordan Stahl is the oldest winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy ever. I want to give a shout out to his son for take his tarp off, waving it from the Carolina crowd the parade. That's something his son is going to remember.
Absolutely. And, Brandon Bussy is a rookie going into the situation, so a lot of pressure was put on him, and he delivered. And Jordan Stahl, 6 goals in the Stanley Cup Finals, so he averaged a goal a game. And I want to get into Freddie Anderson. He had a phenomenal postseason, but he did have a 91% save percentage, which, in my opinion, if you're over 90%, that's good. And you mentioned how he had an 87.4% save percentage in the regular season. So Freddie saved his best for the postseason when it really mattered. But you're thinking maybe that there's a passing of the torch, if you will, for the future with Brandon Bussy.
Yeah, you think so. I don't know if Bussy's going to be the starter for this coming season, because I know Connor Hellebuck's name is going to get thrown out a lot. But if Carolina doesn't get Hellebuck, there's one guy in particular who I would want Eric Tulsky to get. And I said this coming into the trade deadline. Jordan Binnington. And I know he didn't have the best season with St. Louis this year. He had an 8.70 save percentage, but I fully believe that behind the right system, behind the right guys, I think Binnington can thrive again. He's shown in the Olympics that he can thrive behind an elite defensive system. He showed that with Canada, with Devon Taves, Cale Makar, all those guys, Shea Theodore, everybody in Canada. Binnington can thrive with an elite defense in front of him. But Brandon Bussi, let's take this time to appreciate him. He was a waiver claim from the Florida Panthers. He originally came from the Boston Bruins organization. That's been an organization where their goaltending history has been stacked.
Yes.
Had Jeremy Swayman, Linus Ullmark, Tuukka Rask, Jaroslav Halak, Tim Thomas, all coached by Bruins goaltender coach Bob Asensa, and they thrived under him and that defense with him. Bussi was the starting goaltender with the Providence Bruins. This year, he was supposed to be the first-string goaltender behind Anderson and Pyotr Kochetkov. But because Kochetkov got injured earlier in the season, that paved the way for Bussi to get called up. And he thrived where he led the team in wins this season. It was the breakout story, the where did he come from story of the season. Because he went from zero to hero. In an instant, undrafted as well. That's even more special. He's not the only undrafted hero for the Hurricanes. Let's mention Jalen Chatfield, who also was an undrafted free agent. Vancouver didn't want him. Carolina picked him up, and he didn't look back. He was used sparingly in 2022 because he was mostly an AHL defenseman at the time, but he stepped in because of injuries and COVID to others in 2022. Both key departures leaving, like Tony DeAngelo, that paved the way for Chatfield to enter the lineup. And he found his footing on the third pair initially, next to Shane Gostisbehere, who we acquired from the then Arizona Coyotes, who are now the Utah Mammoth. Gostisbehere left. Chatfield up this game next to Dmitry Orlov on the third pairing in 24. That became the second pairing in 25. Both Orlov and Brent Burns leaving. That opened the door for Chatfield next to Jacob Slavin. And Chatfield showed his worth as a shutdown defenseman. He continued that role here throughout his Carolina tenure. And he got rewarded massively.
Now, one thing I want to say, I know you mentioned Rob Brind'Amour plenty of times in this 40-plus minute discussion, but I got to ask you, what image does Rob Brind'Amour have in NHL lore, knowing that he won as a player, captain, and as a coach for the Canes? And fun fact, Rob Brind'Amour has been a part of every Canes playoff victory except for 2. He's a legend in Carolina.
He is the face of the Hurricanes franchise, captain and coach. Nobody embodies this team more than he does. He's the fact that he captained this team and coached this team showed that he's a natural leader at this. He got promoted from the assistant coach position after Bill Peters left for the Calgary Flames in 2018, and Brind'Amour didn't look back. 2019, I'm wearing the shirt of the 2019 team. There are only 6 members left from that team if you count head coach Rod Brind'Amour. Those are Svechnikov, Aho, Martinook, Stahl, and Slavin.
Wow.
And Brind'Amour has been behind it all. He's observed this team and its meteoric rise to one of the league's best, starting from 2022 on to the present. The Hurricanes under him have been praised as a defense-first team. And the Hurricanes know defense wins you championships. That's been the mantra throughout. Eric Tolsky knew that he invested heavily in analytics and defense here. And that's with Slavin, who, while he wasn't at his best in the final, he saved his best for last. Slavin follows Brind'Amour's example. Sean Walker, many have pointed him as an undersized defenseman, saying that, this style of play is not going to work. You need more size into the game. Well, you know, hustle also gets rewarded here. Sean Walker also brings hustle. He showed that in Colorado. He showed that in Philadelphia. He showed that in Los Angeles. Throughout his career, he showed that he is a defensive defenseman. That if you would want to mix in the offensive and the defensive type together. Shane Gostisbehere was once labeled as a one-dimensional offensive defenseman back in Philadelphia. He goes to Carolina on his second stint, and what I saw from Gostisbehere was the best that he's looked as a complete all-around defenseman. He's upped this game defensively under Brind'Amour and assistant coach Tim Gleason, who was teammates with Brind'Amour in the 2009 run to the Eastern Conference Final. They've known each other throughout, and they know how to develop defensemen all throughout. Even for the ones that have left, like Brett Pesce, who was with Kevin's New Jersey Devils.
Yes.
Such a guys like Brady Shea, guys like Dmitry Orlov, Jalen Chatfield, Keandre Miller, Sean Walker. The names come and go throughout. The mantra remains the same.
And you know what? I think Carolina finally got their biggest break. It looked like after the 2024 loss to the Rangers, they looked like they were going to tear things down, but the Carolina Hurricanes stayed with it. And 2 years later, they're champions. They got their moment. And for Carolina Hurricanes fans, the 20-year wait ended. And now my question to you, Alec, last question is, can this team repeat?
It may not be this year. It could be in a future year. But we don't know when exactly. Could be the second Stanley Cup. But Jordan Staal made his intentions clear that he wants to win one more with this group before he calls it a career. And I think that's a good move. Because for someone who embodies his franchise as much as he does, like his brother Eric, who was in attendance for the Stanley Cup final games 1 and Game 6, in which he saw his brother win the Conn Smythe Trophy, Jordan Staal cemented his place in Hurricanes lore. He showed that he is the captain, following the example that his brother set, following the example that Rod Brind'Amour set, following the example that, should I mention one other Hurricanes captain, Justin Williams set, that he set the tone for this current core. Williams knows Brind'Amour well, teammates in the 2009 run and the 2006 run, that they were together and threw it throughout. Svechnikov, Aho, all of that. Now, next season, the Panthers are going to be fully healthy. Now, I've asked for Binnington. I'm going to say it again. Please, if we get Binnington, then our goaltending tandem is going to be set. I don't know what the cost is going to be, but I don't think a first-round pick is going to work in this. A second-round pick would do, considering the season Binnington had. But I want to bring out one other thing.
Sure.
The Florida Panthers were pondering trading away Sergei Bobrovsky at this year's deadline. They were thinking about sending him to the Hurricanes. Bill Zito wanted a first-round pick in return. You know what Eric Tolsky did? Hang up the phone. They did not take that offer. And thank goodness we did not take that offer, because trading away a first-round pick for an aging Sergei Bobrovsky, who's in the back end of his career and is 37 years old, would have spelled disaster. There was no reason to make that trade, because you're just repeating Freddie Anderson all over again. Soon enough, Bobrovsky is going to run out of gas. And Bobrovsky and Anderson had similar save percentages as one another. So one way or another, you're going to have to insert Brandon Bussi in that regard. There is an alternate universe in which the Panthers do not weigh Bussi. However, they went with the Neil Tarasov because they think that he could inherit Bobrovsky as the 1B. Well, I don't know if they're shifting course, but I would not want to imagine if Florida gets Connor Hellebuck. And I would want to say, Anton Lundell, it was nice knowing you as a Panther. But nonetheless, the Panthers with Hellebuck would be a scary thought. Now we have to, if they do get Hellebuck, we have to match that with Binnington.
Yeah, absolutely. So Florida could be back in the mix as they get healthier. I think Carolina, like Alex said, you play who's in front of you, and they took advantage of everything that they needed to. And a 16-3 postseason record, amounts to them being champions. And Al's going to be seeing Seth Jarvis tomorrow at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Dick's Sporting Goods here at the one that's closest to Raleigh. It's on the edge of Cary and Raleigh.
That's pretty awesome. Okay, so we got the Carolina Hurricanes story in the books. Now we're going to travel to New York. But before we do, we got to give a shout out to our sponsor. That's DAS Not Consulting. DAS Not Consulting is there for you and all your IT data center infrastructure needs. They specialize in third-party maintenance, hardware support. And if you want to know more about DAS Not Consulting, our main sponsor, this is Darren Sirianni, my dad. Take a listen.
Our mission is to deliver high quality, scalable, and secure data center services that ensure seamless operations for clients across various industries, offering best-in-class data center services all under one roof.
Thank you, DAS Not Consulting, for everything you do. And before we even begin the next journey and go into hour number 2, happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you. Anyways, welcome to hour number 2 of Foursquare Sports. Matt Sirianni, Kevin Zelicskovics, Alec Nava. This is the championship sweep victory episode number 50, which is perfect timing for this. But now we saw a sea of red. Now we travel to orange and blue skies. I was with Kevin Zelicskovics over on Thursday for the Knicks parade, and if you watched our live stream, which our live stream last week was probably our most viewed thing ever. So for those who came out to our live stream, like Patrick Rush and Jake Hogger, thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate you because, we had never gone live before, and it was a really well done call by both Kevin and Alex. So we tried something, and it worked. And who's to say we can't do it again?
That's right. Expect more in the future.
Yep. But now it's time we go to the story of the 2026 New York Knicks. And by the way, that jersey that Kevin is wearing, we were at a Yankee game after going to the Knicks parade. It's a Yankee soccer jersey for the World Cup purposes, I'm assuming. And they were giving that for the first 18,000 people who arrived at Yankee Stadium on Thursday. Myself, Sammy, and Kevin were there. So the jersey's going to go with the hat. It seems a little odd, but you know what? It works. It's New York anyway. But now, Kevin, this is all you. It's time for the New York Knicks story. So by the way, before we actually start also, I got to give a shout out to a few Knicks fans who couldn't make it here, but I got to give them a shout out because they let a Brooklyn Nets fan like me ride the entire wave. Jake Cardinelli, James Hartman, and Ryan Behringer Jr. You guys rock. And I bet that championship was just as sweet as anything else. I hope we have you on soon. Also, Jake Cardinelli, is a diehard Knicks fan. Watch his show on Twitter, Talking Sports with Jake. He goes ham on everything, and he's also providing a lot of knowledge and intellect. So if you want to see something on Twitter Spaces, Jake's show, Talking Sports with Jake, is the ideal show to go to.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's time to get to the Knicks, finally. Prior to the season beginning, the Knicks were coming off a loss in the Eastern Conference Finals to their kryptonites, the Indiana Pacers, where they lost that series 4-1. And the repercussions of that were head coach Tom Thibodeau was fired. Now, a lot of people, after that decision was made by James Dolan, were not too thrilled about that decision because Tom Thibodeau had taken the Knicks to heights they haven't reached in over a quarter century. Now, Kevin, I know you were one of the first people to complain about the firing. At the time, did you think the Knicks made a mistake?
Yes, I did at the time think it was a mistake because it's like you said. I mean, Tom Thibodeau, you just got the team to the Eastern Conference Finals, something that they haven't been able to do to get to that far in quite some time. And so I was I was one of the first people to it was kind of a head scratching move when you really think about it after doing that. So it was a really risky move at the time to fire your head coach after he just took you as far as this Knicks team further than this Knicks team has gone in like a long time. So absolutely. And then when he made, at the time, who I wanted, Mike Brown wasn't even my first choice for who I wanted. I wanted Mike Malone as the head coach of the Knicks. I know he was in consideration. I know Taylor Jenkins was in consideration. Even Dawn Staley, if you can believe it, was a consideration too. And I really wanted Mike Malone because like he did. He worked with the Denver Nuggets, and he was part of the reason why Denver Nuggets won their first ever championship back in 2023. So I was like, this is perfect. He got fired from his job for seemingly no reason. I don't know. I never understood why that was a firing. And Taylor Jenkins would have been a fine head coach, but like I would have preferred, obviously Mike Malone. But then the Knicks, James Dolan and Leon Rose decided collectively that they chose to go with Mike Brown. And again, very head scratching considering the fact that Tom Thibodeau was the guy with his system. It was a little unorthodox, barely starting his bench, if at all, and kind of starting like all of his 5 stars into the ground. I mean, Josh Hart, when you think about it, under Thibodeau, Josh Hart was playing every second of every game. He had no rest. So Josh Hart was literally a workhorse last season, and they still got to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I can understand if Dolan and Rose thought that maybe a coaching change could help widen the roster a little bit and like give them more balance into the lineup and playing time. But I would have preferred to see if they would have kept Tom Thibodeau on for one more season. And then if he doesn't get you further than the Eastern Conference Finals or even back there, then you can bring like a coach like Mike Brown in. So that was my thought. But they did end up bringing Mike Brown in, and that was probably the riskiest move, but it was high risk, high reward. And boy, did the reward pay off, because now the Knicks are champions for the first time in 53 years. And I could not be more pleased with that coaching change. So I'm glad that Dolan and Rose made that decision.
The risk came the reward. But to get there, let's go through the journey. So the New York Knicks won their first couple games against the Cavaliers and Celtics, respectively. The Celtics did not have Jason Tatum at that time in the beginning of the year. And the Knicks seemed like they were putting together a more balanced attack. You saw bench players like Landry Shamet and Deuce McBride getting utilized a little bit more. You saw Mitch Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns splitting time at center. And that was a positive sign. But where they really began their ascent came in the NBA Cup, or as we say, the in-season tournament, which not a lot of people like. It was in its third year of existence. And the Knicks made it all the way to the finals against a team that they would be embedded with in a rivalry with all season long, the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the New York Knicks won the NBA Cup against San Antonio Spurs by double digits, but when you were facing San Antonio with the newest Golden Boy scene, Victor Wembanyama, your takeaways from the NBA Cup, I don't know if you remember that game, but what were your takeaways after winning the NBA Cup, especially with the lack of success for those who have won it in the past?
Well, when I was watching the NBA Cup, I looked at it like a couple of ways. I mean, I looked at it one way and I looked at it a different way. So the one way I was like, it's the NBA Cup. I mean, like no one here is going to really take it seriously because it's still like pretty much like as when the beginning of the season starts. And it's mainly just like for the players to make some extra money. And like if you lose, it's no big deal, because we've seen in years past that the NBA Cup doesn't seem to really have any merit on the matchups, like in terms of playoff positions going forward. So I didn't really pay no mind to it. But then when they actually won it, I was like, okay, maybe this gives the Knicks like a confidence boost going forward, that like if they can go through like a little mini tournament like this, it can set them up for success later down the line for when they do go to the playoffs, and they can handle these types of runs that they went on in the NBA Cup. And I think that little did everyone know that final matchup was a sign of things to come. So I took it as a sign of a confidence boost rather than a foregone conclusion of what we should expect, those teams matching up later on, which we never knew about.
The New York Knicks in that NBA Cup final were down double digits only to win by double digits. Resiliency, I think, was the key word that describes this Knicks team so perfectly. And the first sign of that comes to Christmas Day at home against the Cavaliers. They were down 17 points, and what happened was magic. In a game that saw a Disney simulcast with Mickey Mouse dunking the ball and other Disney characters seemingly making plays, you saw the bench get utilized a lot in this one, including Tyler Kolek, who scored 16, and Jordan Clarkson, who scored 25. Jalen Brunson did his Jalen Brunson thing, scoring 34. But when you saw the bench step up, that was a true sign of what Mike Brown's system was working. Now, if you remember that Christmas comeback, as mentioned, down 17, but a bench player is scoring 25 and a bench player is scoring 16, and Tyler Kolek was very highly touted coming out of Marquette, and Jordan Clarkson, to start the year, was on to a pretty good start in the year. But how important was it to see bench players like Kolek step up the way he did on Christmas Day?
It was big. I thought it was a nice way to showcase like what this bench is very capable of. And you mentioned it. That's the way Coach Brown likes to coach this team. He likes to utilize the full extent of the bench, something that Tom Thibodeau didn't really seem to do whenever he was the Knicks head coach. But Mike Brown gets the most out of his players up and down the roster, not just their starting five. So to get contributions, big contributions from Jordan Clarkson with his 25, going 9 for 17 from the field in that game, 5 for 10 from 3, and Tyler Kolek putting up 16 in his 25 minutes of work, 5 for 9 from shooting. Also in that game on the other side for Cleveland, keep in mind, the Cavaliers still had Darius Garland on the team. That was before the midseason trade deadline when they traded him to the Clippers. So that was for James Harden later down the line. So Darius Garland did good in that game. He had 20 points, 7 of 14. And honestly, the Cavs team looked way different from that game into the playoffs, who we would eventually face. But the Knicks up and down the lineup all seems to help each other out. And I think that game and that comeback, I think you kind of had a glimpse to see what this team could be later down the line. And I think that Christmas game, that Christmas miracle comeback, I think was a perfect example of that.
Now before we enter 2026 officially, we got the last game of 2025 where the Knicks again faced the Spurs. In a game that they didn't have Landry Shamet or Mitchell Robinson or Josh Hart, the Knicks were up by double digits at one point in this game, and then San Antonio rallied in the fourth quarter to beat the Knicks and get revenge for the NBA Cup loss. And it showed how Victor Wembanyama's potential could be in future years. He had 31, Julian Champagnie had 36, and De'Aaron Fox had 26. Keldon Johnson was the best bench player with 19. But again, the Knicks would face the Spurs many times later in the season, but losing on New Year's Eve that way, Kev, Victor Wembanyama, this is almost like a coming out party for him of what he could become, but also just a showing of what could have been had the Knicks been at full strength.
Yeah, definitely a tough loss. And plus, like you mentioned, there was no Mitchell Robinson in this game at all. And Mohamed Diawara ended up starting that game, if you can remember. It was
yes.
They did get, again, more contributions from the bench in that game. Clarkson had 20 points off the bench in that game, and Deuce McBride had 21 points. And they even still had Gershon Yabusele still at the time before they traded him away. So that was another key factor. And still they were able to keep the game fairly close, only lose by 2. But the Spurs, they were just not missing threes. They went they had 14 threes, and they had 20 more free throws than the Knicks, which I think was a big key factor here. The Knicks only had 20 free throw attempts, and the Spurs had 40. And that was a big contributing factor, I think, as to why the Knicks just fell short when they did. But again, just like Alec with whenever the Canes lost in double overtime against the Knights, I took the glass half full approach. I'm like, okay, well, sure we lost, but A, we weren't fully healthy, and B, we lost by 2. And I think for all things considered, I think our bench contributions were pretty good. And the starting 5, I think Diawara only played 6 minutes, so he did what he could. And I liked what I saw from Brunson and Cat. And I thought if all the guys can mesh well and they can only lose by 2, and it took the Spurs 40 free throws and all those threes to beat us, I'm feeling okay, I'm feeling more confident about the team, even not at full strength. And I'm excited to see what the team could be when they are at full strength. So that's what my perspective was heading out of that game.
After a little bit of a rough January, February was where the Knicks saw a little bit of a rise in the standings and a potential shot at the 2 seed. But no game in February stood out more than an encounter against the the Houston Rockets in Madison Square Garden on February 21st. Alex, the NBA team, came into Madison Square Garden with an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter. However, the New York Knicks did what they've always done, rally back. While Kevin Durant had 30 points, Jalen Brunson had 20, and it was a very balanced effort throughout the night. You saw Karl-Anthony Towns had 25, OG Anunoby and Jalen Brunson had 20, and then Landry Shamet was their bench player who had 14. And at the time, the Knicks got Jose Alvarado, who didn't do much in this game. He played 19 minutes, only scored 8 points. But the rally was all Landry Shamet and OG Anunoby contributing to get the Knicks back where they needed to be. Now, after the Houston comeback, that put spark in the Knicks' veins that maybe they could get the 2 seed.
Yeah, I would. I remember that game for sure. That was one of the first games that we got Jose Alvarado from the trade deadline, and I would argue that's probably, in terms of regular season, I would argue that that's probably one of the toughest regular season games I think the Knicks had, because, like you said, going into that game, the Rockets were red hot, and they had a really good roster. Even, obviously losing a couple of pieces like due to injury, as in losing Fred VanVleet to start the year, and losing Steven Adams. But even then, like, they were a pretty darn good team, like in the regular season, with Katie leading the way. He had 30 points that game. Jabari Smith, 21. Tari Eason, 11. Şengün, 16. Amen Thompson, 12. And Reed Shepherd, 10 off the bench. He's a nice young player. And they were a pretty balanced team at the time. So I was actually concerned that the Knicks were actually going to lose this game, even with, having Jose Alvarado come up as and being traded to the Knicks. But like you said, it was balanced scoring from the starting five. Now, Josh Hart, he didn't do well in this game at all. He only had 2 points in 27 minutes, 1 for 7 shooting. But again, just like what Mike Brown does best, he utilizes the full extent of his bench, and the bench came up big here. He got 14 points out of Landry Shamet, who were able to extend for one more year. And you also had Jose Alvarado. Even though he only had 8 points in 20 minutes, every point mattered in that game, as he was coming up big on in defense. He was plus 19 off the floor, coming off the bench, and I feel like his spark, especially in that game, towards the end, I feel like it was really got the Knicks to just squeak out a win here. And I felt like wins like that, I felt like gave me more confidence. Like, okay, we can beat teams like the Rockets, who I envisioned, going on a big run and maybe getting to the Western Conference Finals at the time is what I thought. And then obviously what happened was a different story. But I felt good wins against great teams like the Rockets. I felt like, especially a tight nose like that, even though starter wasn't doing what he should be doing, I felt like it gave the Knicks, like I said, more confidence going forward, and proving to not just fans like me, but to themselves that they can beat great teams like the Rockets, going forward.
So February kicked off a pretty solid March. The Knicks improved their win-loss record from last year. They went 53-29, better than last year's record that Tom Thibodeau had. The Knicks were good enough for the 3 seed. They did not get the 2 seed, as if you look at the standings, they were 3 games behind Boston. So they ended with the 3 seed barely over Cleveland. Now we get to the playoff and the magic that surrounded it. The first series was against a familiar rival, the Atlanta Hawks, a team that had knocked off the Knicks in the playoffs before. But there was no Trae Young. However, there was one guy, C.J. McCollum. After winning by double digits in the first game, 113-102, the Knicks suffered back-to-back 1-point losses, 106-107 and 108-109. And following that game 3 in Atlanta, Mike Brown and Presser said something that the New York media could not believe. We can't promise you we're going to win this series down 2-1. That also kicked off Kevin's famous rant that got the Knicks going. Now, I'm not going to bring in Marcus Stewart here because we don't need him for this moment. But after Mike Brown made that comment, I can't promise you we're going to win this series, it pissed Knicks fans off like Kevin.
Yeah. And I'll just summarize what I said in that rant. When they went down 2-1, I was very, very mad, and I went on record saying at the time that the Knicks, better win that series in 5 games, because at the time I was expecting, a potential Boston series after that if the Knicks weren't able to come back in that series and win it. And then I was potentially facing Detroit that later down the line they can get past Boston. And it ended up being like completely opposite the case. And when they were down 2-1, and it really only came down to the last possession in both of those back-to-back games, and it ended up coming at the hands, fortunately, from C.J. McCollum. And I will give C.J. McCollum credit. Like, he was pretty much the only guy on the Atlanta Hawks, even though he's like, up there in age as a veteran on that team, and well-versed in basketball. He's been around a long time and he knows how to create his own shot. He knows how to come up clutch. And he beat us back-to-back games. And simply it's because the Knicks failed to execute in the final minutes later down the stretch. And they really didn't have an answer for C.J. McCollum until it came to Game 4 when they made the adjustments. And then I said on record, like, with that rant, like, that comment, I don't know what Mike Brown was thinking at the time. I felt like I'm just going to make an assumption that I think like he didn't want to assume anything, or he didn't want to make like a risky claim and say like, we're going to come back easily. And then like, it's going to come like bite them in the butt later on if like that statement backfires. So I felt like he went with a safe but like risky approach when he said that statement. But it rubbed fans like me the wrong way, saying like, how are you not confident in your ability as the New York Knicks head coach to say that you can't promise you're going to come back from 2-1 down? That's what I thought of at the time, but I can understand now, obviously with the Knicks as champions, I guess the reasoning behind Brown's comments at the time. And I guess maybe it was me that sparked the Knicks to, wake up. But they waked up in a big way as after those back-to-back losses, that 114-98 victory in Game 4 sparked what was probably one of the greatest playoff runs you'll ever see. And in that Game 4, it's just a bit of a recap. Everybody up and down that roster contributed. OG had 22 points that game. Cat had 20. Cat had a triple-double that game. 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. And that was the game that I think the week after I said the Cat was looking like Jokic out there, getting like, a lot of assists in there. Hart, 10 points. Mikal Bridges, 8 points. Brunson had a bad game that game, 19 points. So for him, that's a pretty bad game, 7 of 18 shooting. And like the bench was a little bit more balanced there. You had 7 from Clarkson, 6 from Jose Alvarado, 11 from Deuce, even a couple of points from Tyler Kolek in garbage time. And they were able to neutralize C.J. McCollum. He had 17 points, which was leading all scorers. And that's not going to get the job done. Like if 17 is your big score. Now, C.J. McCollum did what he had to do, but he wasn't getting enough contributions from Dyson Daniels that game when he only had 6 points. And Jalen Johnson was the second. Akil Alexander-Walker was the second leading scorer of 15. So that wasn't going to get the job done. But after that win, that's what sparked the big run that the Knicks would eventually go on to have. And I also said that I believe it was Karl Anthony Towns. I don't know who went to who, but I believe it was Karl Anthony Towns that went to Mike Brown, and he's made a suggestion to like, hey, let's change my role a little bit. Let's make me a point center. I think I'm comfortable doing whatever you want to do. Like my way hasn't worked. Let's go with your way now, coach. And then I think that whatever he said to coach or whatever Brown said to Cat, it worked. Because Cat was like flowing as a point center, looking like a role a la Jokic out there.
Yes.
He was sharing the basketball, not shooting like threes top of the key. He would pump fake and drive, and he would bully ball his way. If something wasn't there, he would kick it out to the nearest man and would let his other teammates score. He was sharing the basketball a lot, which was very good in the Knicks' mobility and movement of the basketball. The Knicks offense, before that Game 4, it looked like it was getting there to like the rhythm that I think that Mike Brown was looking for. And whenever a Cat changed his role from then on, the Knicks offense looked like liquid. It was flowing. Everyone was passing the ball. Everyone was sharing it. Everyone had the same mentality. Everyone was scoring in bunches. Everyone had the same belief and same objective, which was to score, defend, and pick up each other up. And I think that's what ultimately happened right after that game ended, because after that game, they proceeded to win 13 straight playoff games. And the Hawks series was only the first stop, Matt.
Yes, it was. Now, to close out the Hawks series, they won Game 4 by 16. They won Game 5 by 29. And they won Game 6, the closeout game, by 51 in a game where they were up by as much as 61. In a game where they were down 9-5 in the first few minutes, they turned it on in a big way. And only 3 words have described what comes next. Belt to ass.
Yeah.
So,
That game 6 put the end of Chris Paul. It's a huge free, and the birth of Jalen Johnson. It's a huge free.
yes, it was. So now we're going to get into what happened next. What happened next was that the Knicks were going to wait for who their second round opponent was going to be. It ended up being the Philadelphia 76ers, not the Boston Celtics, who many people were expecting. And before the second round even started, Kevin did say that he believes the Knicks could match up well with the Celtics, because the Celtics are a team that loves to shoot the 3 ball very well, and they do. However, you play whoever's in front of you. The key thing that the Carolina Hurricanes had transfers to the Knicks. However, before the conclusion of the Hawks series, there was another mini storyline that involves our good friend Danhausen. Prior to the NBA playoffs, Danhausen cursed the New York Knicks after Stephen A. Smith treated him poorly. The Knicks were down 2-1 at the time, but then a fan bribed Danhausen into uncursing the Knicks, giving the guy actual money to reverse the curse. And I know Kevin thinks it's ridiculous. This is coming out of my mouth, but Kevin, what'd you make of that whole storyline?
I mean, I didn't even know who Danhausen was at the time, and until maybe midway through the Sixers series, and then I heard about it, and then I'm like, okay, seems like people are really believing in this guy. I think it's just kind of nonsense. But then after the Knicks started winning and they kept on winning, I'm like, I mean, okay, maybe I should start to believe this too. I mean, it's like okay, it's just kind of like one of those superstitions where you just roll with it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Then you call it out. Kind of the same thing that happened with remember the New York Mets last year. Whenever Grimace threw out the first pitch, and then Mets fans bought into that, and they started winning, and then people were buying into the Grimace stuff. Same thing here with Danhausen, except that it actually worked towards the end for the Mets. It didn't. Yeah, I didn't really hear about that until midway through the Sixers series.
Oh, side note: Danhausen uncursed the Hurricanes after Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final, and Carolina won every single game since.
There you go.
Oh my God. Danhausen, oh my God.
Give you more ammo now.
Yeah. Danhausen, can you please uncurse the Yankees?
Yes, please, Danhausen. I will pay you money to uncurse the Yankees. Please.
Yeah. Please do.
But anyway, getting back on track with the Knicks playoff run. Next was the Philadelphia 76ers, an opponent they have faced before, a division rival. Although divisions don't matter in the NBA. They're facing Joel Embiid in the second round. And let's just say, again, BTA. Not GTA, BTA. Because you can call it BTA 4. Pretty much if you want to call it that. First game, the Sixers lost 137-98. It was a 39-point defeat. Second game at the Garden was one of the few times the Knicks actually won by single digits. They won by 6. And I think part of it was the fact that Joel Embiid was not playing, but the Sixers kept it close. And there's a woman named Rossi Takes who was having an aneurysm every time the Sixers lost a game because she hates the Knicks so bad. One of those fans that you really have to just kind of ignore. If you're a Philadelphia sports fan, you just gotta kind of ignore Rossi Takes. Game 3, no OG Anunoby, no problem for the New York Knicks. They won 108-94 in a game where, even though it was in Philadelphia, the Knicks-Sixers fan disparagement was pretty high. Knicks fans took over the Sixers arena, and it also showed one other thing. Knicks fans travel far and wide, and it doesn't matter what restrictions you put on them. Because Philadelphia, prior to that, put a restriction that no Knicks fans can enter Wells Fargo. I'm calling it Wells Fargo Arena. I don't care. But after that, Game 4 happened. 144-114 win on Mother's Day in a game where the Sixers absolutely gave up. Their hearts were taken out of their bodies. And the Knicks were seeing the Eastern Conference Finals. And Kev, this wasn't even a competitive series.
I mean, it wasn't a competitive series until game 2, like you said. I mean, that was pretty much the only time that the Knicks didn't win by single digits until later down the road in their playoff run. But yeah, I did go on record saying that like when the Sixers and Celtics series ended, or like right before it ended, you asked me the question of like who would I rather face, Boston or Philly, and I said I probably would rather face Boston because I know that like Alex said, the Knicks were built to beat Boston because we've beaten them before in a playoff setting last year, and I think that the Knicks have proven that they can beat Boston with ease, especially in a playoff setting. And like I said, Boston was not as strong this year as they were last year. Last year, you got to keep in mind they had Kristaps Porzingis, they had Al Horford, and they had Drew Holiday, which I feel like were very key pieces as to why Boston won a championship the year prior, and then like they went as far as they did last year. So I felt like them losing all those pieces kind of hindered them a lot, and it just shows why. And like they went on to blow a 3-1 series lead, and like the Sixers took that momentum and drove it until they were able to win that series in 7 games. And as the grittier team ended up winning, and we ended up facing them. And then the only reason I said that I'd rather face Boston is because I feel like the Knicks would have a more competitive match against the Sixers because they were tied with them 2-2 in the regular season, 2 wins with Embiid in and 2 wins without Embiid in. So I felt like at the time, I felt like that a Knicks Sixers series would have been more competitive. Plus, when you consider the fact that the year prior, the Knicks had a very competitive series against the Sixers, but they ended up beating in 6 games. So that's where my perspective came from. And then this series came on after game 2. I'm like, okay, I was completely wrong. I'm glad I was wrong. Like, because they took all the momentum that they had after those 2 losses against Atlanta, completely rolled momentum the entire rest of the way, including that Sixers series. And I think I was a bit concerned because they only won by 6 points with no Embiid. So I'm like, okay, I would need to see how they perform in game 3 because like if Embiid comes back and they win, then it's impossible for the Sixers to win. And it doesn't really matter what happens after that. I know that the Knicks have already won the series already. And Embiid came back and it didn't matter. And I was mostly concerned with, Maxey and Edgecombe because those 2 guys are young, work well together. And like BJ Edgecombe, I think is going to be a future superstar in this league. He has a great shot. I remember how good he was back when he was at Baylor. So I know exactly how his game is. Just we're in the same division with my UH Cougars. And so I was expecting it to be a more competitive series than it actually ended up being. But the Knicks, they've had experience and they've used that experience in the past against Philly to beat them in a playoff setting. And it didn't matter if it was at home or on the road. And that was the second straight series where they closed them out. And BTA was just the name of the game in those 2 games. And they ended up putting 140 plus points in both of those closeout games. So that series, after game 2, it was pretty much all Knicks from there.
And then they had to wait for their opponent in the Eastern Conference Finals as Pistons Cavaliers went to a game 7. And it was Cleveland who came out on top, the weaker team. A lot of people, again, were expecting the Pistons to be the ones to face the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. While our friends Jake Hawker and Patrick Rush were not happy with the result, Knicks fans were hoping that this would be an easy series as Cleveland was clearly inferior. But game 1 did not
Don't tell that to Kenny Atkinson.
Don't tell that to Kenny Atkinson. We'll get into that a little bit in a second. Game 1 did not seem like that. In game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, the Knicks were down 22 points with just under 8 minutes to go. And then, again, New York's tough and New York resiliency was displayed here as Landry Shamet and Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges all stepped up and contributed in major ways to send the game to overtime tied at 101. And then when they got to overtime, the Knicks won 115-104 in overtime at the Garden against the Cavaliers. And that may have been a sign of things to come as the Hearts ripped out of Cleveland. Now, I mentioned the 18 and 17 point comebacks, Kev, but this one, I think, was one of the more notable comebacks in playoff history.
Yeah, and like we go back to the regular season for a little bit for those comebacks against the Rockets and the aforementioned Cavs, and so I knew that like from that when we came back against the Cavs on Christmas, I felt like in this game I felt like it was a little bit to that, but in a playoff setting, and definitely a higher circumstance here. So I was like of the mindset of like, okay, we have our team fully healthy, and there's still time in the game, and like I was just like I think that the Knicks have done this before. I think they can do it again. And like, but it's going to be a little different this time because like, Cavs were a different team back then. They didn't have Harden back then. Now they have Harden paired up with Donovan Mitchell. But the Knicks were also a different team back then. Didn't have certain players that were healthy. So I kind of like it kind of balances out here. And so I was like, okay, as long as they keep it close by a certain point, and then like, Jalen Brunson can close it out. And again, this was a Jalen Brunson game. He had to impose his will once again, as many times as he was able to do in the regular season. He did it in this comeback, down 22. He had finished with 38 points, with 15 of 29 shooting. And like after him, who were the other guys that were going to step up? Because it couldn't have been just Brunson, right? And you mentioned it. Mikal Bridges, second leading scorer with 18 points. He was 7 of 11 from the field. Barely missed the entire game, so he was a big factor as to why they came back from as much as they did. And Landry Shamet, even though he played for only 17 minutes, his 3 threes were big and clutch, timely moments in that game, and like he was a big reason why I think they even came back from that much. And like you look at the stats, and it seemed like that the Cavs should have won this game because they scored 6 more threes than the Knicks. The Knicks had 10 threes and the Cavs had 16. You would think that that'd be enough to win the game. And then like also considering the fact that the Cavs were shooting really, really good from the field, like especially from the free throw percentage line. That's sort of 70%, and Knicks missed 12 free throws, 66%. So it really like hurt them towards the end there. But like you said, the grit, the toughness, the no quit mentality, the ability to come back by that much, I think was a catalyst of what was to come later on in their run. This was the game that proved that they could come back from a big deficit like that in a playoff setting. And I think this was the first game that really kicked that off.
And then game 2 followed in the Garden. Knicks won 109-93. Third, game 3 in Cleveland with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce in attendance. 121-108 victory for the Knickerbockers. It was after game 3 where Kenny Atkinson was asked a question. And that question was, what makes you think you can come back and win this series? And he said the infamous quote that many people are still scratching their heads over. Analytically, we're up 2-1 in this series. If you look at how we're playing, we're doing better in this 3-game sample size than we did all season long.
That's what I said. Don't tell Kenny Atkinson and that about being the better team. Still cracks me up. Well, you got to earn it.
And then in game 4, analytically, I think the team checked out.
Yeah.
130-93 in game 4 in a game where the Cavaliers couldn't buy a bucket if their lives depended on it. Jalen Brunson was named Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And now the Knicks have one more series left to go, but this was an absolute clinic from start to finish. James Harden probably lost brain cells after that series. That's how bad things were. Do I even need to say anything about this, Kev?
Well, Matt. So regarding Kenny Atkinson, when you're getting beat down by as much as the Cavs did, you start to question your own intelligence a little bit with Kenny Atkinson, because he had this blind confidence or something in his mind that suggested that he wanted to sound smarter than what actually came out of his mouth. And he knows that when you go down 0-3, it's virtually impossible to come back from. So I think he tried to make it sound like in his head, I guess, smarter than what he actually did say. And so analytically, I think that the Cavs are NBA champions. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like they're the analytical champions here because Kenny Atkinson, in his mind, he's still thinking that way. But like he might have lost brain cells after game 3 because he knows that like, well, there's nothing I can say or do at this point, so might as well try to say some nonsense in order to like drive views of the series up, or something like that, or try to get the team fired up. Because maybe his team saw that and I'm like, okay, guys, do you want to make me look stupid, or do you actually want to try to win a game here? And like the Cavs didn't heed into that confidence because it didn't seem like Kenny Atkinson had any confidence himself of his team to come back in that series. And you were right. I mean, the Knicks, they did the same thing that we did against the Hawks and the Sixers. When they have a chance to put out the kill shot and put you away, they put you away, and they put you away hard. And the Knicks did that again, winning by 37 points. And again, Brunson didn't have to be the hero this game. He only had 15 points this game. He wasn't even the leading scorer. It was Karl-Anthony Towns with 19. And very balanced scoring from all around in that game, closeout game. OG had 17. Mikal had 15. Hart had 6. But he was a big key in that game for in terms of rebounding and defense purposes, where he had 11 rebounds and 6 assists. And the bench did good. Once again, Landry Shamet, 16 points. Very good off the bench in his 19 minutes played. Deuce McBride, 11 points. And even and then the Cavs were getting beat down and waved the white flag so off early that they decided to put almost every single player on the Knicks roster scored that game. That's how much that the Knicks were beating them down. The only person that didn't score was my guy Mohamed Diawara. 8 minutes, no points from him. But you got guys like Pacome Dadier scoring on you. 6 points from Dadier, 8 from Mitch. 2 from Huck Porty, who didn't really play a whole lot in this playoffs until the NBA Finals a little bit. Clarkson, 3. Alvarado, 4. Tyler Kolek, 8 points. And Sohan was the only one that didn't even play at all in that game. So it was like contributions from everybody up and down the lineup. And let the Cavs wave the white flag as soon as they lost game 3. They knew that they couldn't come back. And once again, Harden was proving why he is a playoff choke artist. He had 12 points in 33 minutes, 2 of 8 from shooting, 0 for 6 from 3. 8 of his 12 points came from the free throw line, and he was a minus 19 on the floor. And Donovan Mitchell seemed like the only guy on the floor that actually cared and wanted to win, with him getting 31 points. And Mobley being your second leading scorer with 15. And Harden, like, again, I feel like he's definitely questioning his life decisions because, like, what was it, like a few weeks ago? Like we heard the reports of him carrying a firearm around and doing some stupid nonsense. So I feel like it's getting to his head a little bit. And I feel like maybe either next year or the next 2 years, I guarantee he was going to request a trade and he's going to go torture some other franchise that's not going to win. And he's never going to win an NBA championship. I mean, he had his chance with the Rockets, and I really, really want him to win at the time because I love seeing Prime Harden the way he worked, but now he's too far gone. He let his emotions and mentality get in the way, and I don't think he's ever going to win another champ. He's never even going to see another championship in his life. So I feel like this is a perfect example of why. And pairing him up even with Donovan Mitchell is not going to help his case, no matter how hard that he wants to push back, saying on the notion, because even he lost brain cells after they lost the series, saying like, "Oh, I think we're the better team," straight up. I mean, like, and saying and like. Were you, though? You lost 4-0. You got swept. I don't want to hear nonsense about that. But I digress. I mean, like, once again, the Knicks, just like the Sixers, they demoralized the Cavaliers, and the Cavaliers simply just had no answer after Game 3.
So after a 4-game sweep, Kenny Atkinson, while he kept his job, he's probably leaning on lampposts. If you know where that's coming from. Okay. Now the final stop was the NBA Finals. Knicks were the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Spurs came out of the Western Conference, not the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were the best team in the NBA that entire season. And fans in New York were chanting, "We want Wemby." Well, they got what they wanted. And again, the theme of you play who's in front of you. The Knicks were the higher seed in each of their Eastern Conference Finals in their Eastern Conference playoff matchups. This is the first time they were an underdog against a Spurs team that had a lot of young talent, but a lot of inexperience. In Game 1, the Knicks won by 10 after being down 14. Not much to write home to your mother about in that one, although the Knicks were resilient again. Game 2, the Knicks were down by 14 yet again, late. But the Spurs made careless mistakes throughout the second half, including a play where Jalen Brunson missed a floater, rebounded by Victor Wembanyama. Wembanyama got the rebound and tried to do a push pass to Stephon Castle, who didn't see it. Jalen Brunson took advantage of that, hit the game-winning free throw, and the Spurs couldn't take advantage of their last chance to win at home. So that was the Knicks' 8th straight playoff victory on the road, and their 13th overall. It was good for second in NBA history as far as winning streak in postseason history behind the 2017 Warriors. Now, game one's not much to write home to your mother about, but again, game two just showed the Spurs' experience or lack thereof, and the Knicks take advantage of that.
Yeah, game two was the first time where I felt like that this might be a longer series than I would have liked. Probably like a 6 or 7 game series up until the final score happened. And yeah, the Spurs, this was their game to win. Like even watching as a Knicks fan, like there was just some mistakes that the Knicks made a lot in this game. And again, this is the game where I thought that there was foul in the officiating for sure. And I think that carried on the rest of the finals. And I think this game was a very, very first example of that. Tony Brothers was the crew chief in this game, and Tony Brothers coached or officiated horribly in this game in particular. And the Knicks were very fortunate to even win this game because this was the game that Brunson didn't even score well. 20 points, 7 of 25. Mikal Bridges had a nice game. He had 28 for 13 shooting. OG, 17. Cat, 21, 13 rebounds. The starters played good, but Josh Hart scored 0 points that game. 0 for 4 shooting, 18 minutes. I think he got hurt in that game too, and he had to come out of that game. And the bench barely did anything. I mean, Landry Shamet got 13 off the bench, and Mitch got 7, and that was kind of it for bench scoring-wise. And then Brunson did all he could, especially in the closing seconds of the game, where he missed that floater, and I thought in that moment, dude, the Knicks are going to blow it. It's going to be 1-1 heading into the Garden, isn't it? And then Victor Wembanyama, with his lack of experience showing, throws it to Stephon Castle's back, turns it over. Brunson sees it immediately, gets the ball, and then he gets fouled by Wembanyama. You can see that the fake crying face on Wembanyama start to ensue. And then when Brunson hit those 2 free throws and the Knicks actually held serve and won that game, at that point, I knew that the Knicks, they can actually win the finals, like after that game, but they won that game, because that was a game that 10 times out of 10 that they would have lost in years past, but they found a way to win. And like, it were, again, with a little bit of luck here and there, especially with Wembanyama turning the ball over and with their defense, like just holding on just enough. That was the moment that I felt that like this Knicks team, they really could win a championship this year. And so I felt that, because like you look at, again, much like the first game of the Cavs series, you look at the box score from the Spurs and you think they should win this game because Wembanyama was great in that game. He had 29 points. De'Aaron Fox, 20 points. Vassell and Castle, 14 apiece. Champagny, 8 points. And then Dylan Harper, 15 points off the bench. And he felt like it was good enough to win the game. But that turnover changed, I think, the entire rest of the series, let alone that game. And I think that game 2 was a big spark for what was to come later.
With the Knicks up 2-0, they went to their home, Madison Square Garden, and the stars were out. You saw Adam Sandler. You saw Ben Stiller. You saw Spike Lee. You saw that woman from Law & Order SVU. I don't know her name because I don't watch that show. You saw Danhausen. And the POTUS was also in attendance.
Oh, you forgot someone else. Timothée Chalamet.
Oh, Timothée Chalamet, that's right. Yeah, I can't forget him. He's pretty memorable too. But anyway, the stars were out. And the Knicks, again, overcame a double-digit deficit to take the lead. However, the Spurs rallied back, won game 3 by 4. And that took a shot at their confidence a little bit, knowing that they couldn't officially clinch it at the Garden. Game 4. Knicks were down in bunches early on, again, thanks to bad officiating and just lack of offensive execution. This was the game where, full disclosure, in the first quarter, I turned it off. And I made a post on Instagram and Facebook criticizing the NBA and their terrible officiating, as well as what Adam Silver has not done correctly. However, after I turned the lights off and went to bed, I missed out on magic that only Kevin, Jake Cardinelli, and anyone watching that game and the 20 million people plus watching Game 4 could say. Now, I did watch the highlights of Game 4. I didn't miss out entirely. But down 29 early in the third quarter, the Knicks rallied back thanks to Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby, who had one of the most iconic tip-ins in NBA Finals history. And it again showed the lack of experience by the Spurs, but also the lack of execution on their one veteran of the Spurs, De'Aaron Fox, who after Brunson missed a shot, got the rebound, had a breakaway, and instead of holding the ball and pulling it out, decided to take a shot that was blocked by Anunoby. And with the final timeout of that game, Mike Brown tried to set up a play for Brunson. He missed a three, but then you see OG Anunoby sprinting in to get a rebound, and he just tipped it in, and it went in with 1.2 seconds to go. And at that point, there was no coming back from that. Now, I called Kevin after that game to ask what was going on. Kevin, in your best words, please explain what happened in Game 4.
So real quick, quick thoughts from Game 3. I mean, like if you thought that Tony Brothers officiating Game 2 was bad, I mean, Game 3's officiating was even worse in my opinion. And that game, I'm not going to make excuses about the officiating as to why they lost. I mean, the Knicks turned the ball over a lot in that game. It was just mostly silly turnovers, and that was the game where Mike Brown complained about the officiating because in that second half, I think 25 of the 32 free throws that the Spurs did have in that game came all in the second half, and the Knicks only had 8 free throws the second half. And then Mike Brown complained about this big disparity between the free throws, and that kind of brushed it under the rug. You still have a 2-1 series lead, whatever, play better next game. And then Game 4 happened, and again, the Knicks just simply were not playing good in that first half. I mean, so bad to a point to where the Spurs put on literally the best first half in NBA Finals history. And I was just like, I was so upset, Matt, that we were down 27 at the half. I was so incensed and upset that I literally drove to my nearest Taco Bell to get a snack and brought it back to just calm me down and kind of vent in the car as I was driving. And I was just like, come on, man. We're just not playing like we were in the past 2 series. And I was just getting so upset. And I'm like, don't do this to me. I believe that I've been with you. I've been sticking with you. I've believed in you. Don't give up on yourself because you never gave up on yourself before. Don't do it right now. And then I came back, ate my burrito, and then I proceeded to watch the greatest comeback I've ever seen in my life. Not just in basketball, but I think in professional sports, in my personal opinion, because people after this game compared to this comeback similar to, the famous 28-3 comeback in the Super Bowl
Right.
did against the Atlanta Falcons. I would argue this is even better than that because the odds of coming back down 20, because a bucket's 2 points or 3 points. So that's a lot to come back down from 29, especially when the odds are stacked against you. But at least a touchdown in an NFL is worth 6.7 points. And it's Brady. And he's going to come back from that down if you let him. And the Falcons let him in that game. So I think that was a possibility that they can come back. And that they had a person who was capable of doing that. But this was the Knicks. They weren't supposed to do this. They weren't supposed to have this organization wasn't built to have a team that could come back down from that because it's never been done before. And I was telling my dad after I was finishing my Taco Bell, I'm like, if the Knicks get it close, if the Knicks get it to 15 or under at the end of the third quarter, they got a chance. And they got it to 15 by the end of the third quarter. I'm like, they got a chance. They've got a chance. And I think that they've got to let Jalen Brunson work and let him do his fourth quarter magic. He's been doing all season and postseason long up until that point. And for most of the game, the Spurs, with that greatest first half in NBA Finals history, then the Knicks proceed to have the best second half in NBA Finals history in the same game. Like you could not like write a better script than what just happened, and like in that game, because like the odds were stacked against them, and like
Yes.
you had even officiating was bad in that game too. Like it got worse as the series went on, and like Wembanyama tried to do like his best, but like first half he was great, the second half he was garbage, and he had 24 points. He was the leading scorer, but he was 9 for 25 for the game, and De'Aaron Fox and Vassell played good. They both got 18. Fox was really killing it in the fourth quarter, which I didn't expect. Castle had a rough game, 13 points. And Dylan Harper, he was unbelievable for like the whole series. He had 21 points, 8 for 12 shooting. And Champagny, rarely he had a bad game in terms of shooting the three ball because he's their big 3-point threat. He only had 5 points and 1 for 7 from 3. So like that was very concerning, but it was good that the Knicks shut him down. And then the Knicks, it was basically 3 guys that carried that comeback: Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, and actually I would say 4 guys: Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Jose Alvarado. And
Yes.
that was the game where when the Knicks had a chance to come back, when they were down 15 to start the fourth quarter, Mike Brown did something that he hasn't done all regular season or playoffs long. He put Jose Alvarado on the floor at the same time as Jalen Brunson, having both of them on the floor together. And I thought that was a genius move, like in retrospect, looking back on it, because then if you get 2 ball handlers on the floor who are both speedy and elusive and can both create their own shot, because you're trying to, that's what you want, right? You're trying to get back. You're down by a lot of points. You need guys who can handle the ball well, because you know that Karl-Anthony Towns was in foul trouble early on in this game. He ended up with 4 personal fouls, and he didn't really play that much until at the end of the game. And so you kind of saw a lot of Mitch Robinson and Ariel Hukporti in that game towards the end. So I feel like putting Alvarado in, I think, was a big catalyst of why they were able to like move the ball as well as they did, especially that. And OG Anunoby was spectacular that game. 33 points, 10 of 15 shooting, 7 for 9 from 3. Made all 6 of his free throws, and he was unbelievable. And like he was basically saying to Jalen Brunson, "You're not alone here. I'm not going to let you like one-man army this. I got your back." And he did get his back. Jalen Brunson got 36 points in that game, 12 for 25 shooting, struggled for 3 for 7, but he made the threes when it mattered, big threes, especially that 3 that he made over Victor Wembanyama to cut the lead to 1 later in that fourth quarter, which was a big 3 at the time. And he made 9 of his 11 free throws. And OG Anunoby, that last play call when they were down by 1, and Josh Hart steals the ball, clear breakaway, clear bucket. The Knicks would go up by 2, or they would go up. Yeah, they would go up, I think, by 2 points. And like, nope. Instead, Josh Hart misses the shot of his life. He was. I don't know what happened there. I think he was stuck between like, should I dunk it? Should I lay it in? And then like he ended up missing it. And I was like, how? I felt like there was a small part of my brain in the back of my mind, like, we're gonna lose because of that, aren't we? And like, because I've seen this before, like with this team. I expect these type of moments to bite us like later down the line, and like it usually has, because we've seen this for years. And like and then later in the game, Brunson put the team on his back. OG with seemingly as a lone supporting cast, because it seems like Hart and Bridges were struggling mightily to do anything. But you know what? Hart, with only 6 points, he made up for it with his rebounding and his defense. He was everywhere across the boards. When Cat was in foul trouble, he was there to rebound the ball. And that last possession, I was holding my breath. I'm like, please, dude, I have believed in you even like for so long, and this entire postseason run. Do not make me give up belief, because you're not giving up on yourself. And when I saw them making that comeback, I'm like, they're not giving up on me. They're not giving up on themselves. And I knew that they had a good chance to win this game. And that final possession, the ball was. We all know the ball was going to end up in the hands of Jalen Brunson. But I was not a fan of the shot that Brunson took there. He took a quick 3. I would have much rather seen him. But they're both the Knicks and the Spurs are in the bonus. So I'm like, drive, get fouled, and then just make free throws and win the game. That's what I would have done. But Brunson decided to put up a 3. He missed it. Was short off the front iron. But then OG coming in, who was the inbounder, nobody was guarding him. Not one Spur saw him. And what I like to call the hand from God shot. Looking at that just enough momentum to put his hand on the ball and tip it in with 1.2 seconds to go. And the Garden was full of pandemonium. I was up on my feet. I was jumping up and down. My heart was racing at 200 beats per minute. I couldn't believe what I just saw. Like that they actually made a shot there, because I thought when Brunson missed it, that was over. I feel like when Wembanyama was going to get the rebound, that was over. He was going to get fouled, and then like the game would have been over, and it would have been a 2-2 series heading, back to San Antonio, and it wasn't the case. I mean, OG Anunoby just put the icing on top for what was probably the greatest game of his life. And
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. And then the inbounds pass, and then it was missed by Castle, and then Hart defended pretty well. But I didn't know after the game, what was found out that he tipped the pass that Harper inbounded. If Cat doesn't get a fingertip on there,
Right.
that's a clear pass to Castle, and that was a clear layup, and the Spurs would have won that game. So big credit goes to Karl-Anthony Towns for staying in there, and whenever he did for foul trouble, he stayed in for defensive purposes. He just enough of his fingertips to redirect the ball to where Castle had to go back to get it, and then great defense by Hart towards the end there, and then the Knicks pull off the miracle at the Mecca, like I like to call it now, looking back on it.
Yeah.
29-point victory, the largest comeback ever in NBA Finals history, and they take a 3-1 lead that I knew from then on and there out they won this finals because of that performance. And I think that was a big reason as to think what happened next game.
Game 5. We called it here. We didn't get hit with a copyright, thank God. And the Knicks were down 16 early on. They would rally back. The first few minutes of that game were an eyesore, as Alec put it. No one could make a shot. Defense was great. But the Knicks, again, down big, resiliency, did everything they can. And then to summarize this, they were up by 3. Landry Shamet fouled Dylan Harper immediately. Dylan Harper was not used a lot in late minutes. I don't know why, because Mitch Johnson. One thing I want to say, we're going to go over 2 hours, but that's totally fine. I want to get a little taking on Mitch Johnson here. Mitch Johnson coached this final so poorly. So poorly. And I think part of it had to do with his lack of experience, again. But I think another part of it was just basic basketball. One thing that people didn't mention in Game 4 was that the Spurs just kept taking 3 after 3 after 3 without a care. And that just falls on coaching.
Especially since it's not their style of game they play.
Yes, exactly. So, Jalen Brunson scored 45 in Game 5. But, again, the last sequence. Harper fouled by Landry Shamet with 8.8 seconds to go. Dylan Harper missed 2 free throws. OG Anunoby got the ball fouled with the Knicks up by 3. OG missed the first, made the second. Victor Wembanyama 3, no good. Desperation heave, and then all you saw was Kevin Zelicskovics' face in tears as the New York Knicks became NBA champions for the first time since 1973. And Knicks Nation went very, very crazy. Parties at the Garden, parties in the 5 boroughs in Central Park. It was a sight to behold. I wish I had the audio of Kevin's speech after the Knicks won, but it just speaks for itself. Like, that was probably the most fulfilling thing Knicks and New York City as a whole needed.
Yeah, I honestly was kind of expecting the Spurs to play desperate and for the series to go 3-2 in the Garden. It would have been, a storybook ending, right? Like to win at the Garden, your first championship in 53 years. But I also was like, no, I want this series to end as quickly as possible because I don't want the Spurs to get any sort of life after this game and think that they can come back from a 3-1 deficit, because it's only been done the one time by LeBron's Cavs in 2016. And I was also like that that even if the Knicks won were to close it out in San Antonio, keep in mind that's the same building that Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, and Dante DiVincenzo, who was with the team now no longer is, all of them won the Villanova championship in that same building in Frostbank Arena. So it would have been perfect either way for them to close it out in San Antonio or MSG. So that was my mindset going into there too. But I would have rather. That's why I was like, I want to see this series end sooner rather than later. And in this game, I thought OG was going to pick up where he left off of last game. It just wasn't the case here. OG had a bad game in Game 5. 11 points, 3 for 11 shooting. But he picked it up defensively. Cat, as much as credit as I love to give him for what he's done this playoffs, he had his worst game of the playoffs by far in Game 5. 2 points, 1 for 7 shooting, 10 rebounds, cool, but he fouled out of the game. He just wasn't opposing as well against Spurs defenders like he was that entire series. This wasn't a good game from him. You barely saw him play. So Josh Hart, all heart's in his name. He showed heart and toughness in that game. 13 points. I know it wasn't a lot, but that was just enough. And he got 11 rebounds. He led the team in rebounds that game. So he was flying across the boards, and he was doing what he could defensively to try and make up for it. And he came up with some clutch threes down the end. Mikal Bridges, I'd like to get on him for last game where he only had 2 points. He made up for it, especially down the stretch. 14 points, 5 for 10 shooting, and the bench was non-existent in this game for the Knicks. Mitch, 20 points, only 2 points, 2 from Clarkson and 5 from Shamet. Shamet wasn't good in this game like he was in previous games. The bench was completely shut down. So I got to give credit to the Spurs there for shutting the Knicks down. The Spurs. Champagny had a great game, 14 points. Victor Wembanyama, although he was making some questionable decisions, he had an okay game, 19 points, 7 for 19. Vassell had an okay game, 12 points. So Dylan Harper was unbelievable. He was the MVP of that game by far. 25 points, 10 for 19 off the bench. He is a future superstar of the league, guaranteed. He is unbelievable. That kid is young. He's got a bright future. I want to say that. Stephon Castle, the worst game I've ever seen him play in my life. Even going back to his college days, he played awful in that Game 5. 6 points. 4 of those 6 points are from the free throw line. He was 1 for 10 from shooting. The Knicks completely shut him down. And so that was good to see. And again, De'Aaron Fox, also complete garbage in that game. 7 points, 3 for 15, 1 for 8 from the field. If I'm the Spurs, you got to get rid of this guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be one of your veterans, experienced veterans that you can lean on for to score and to lean off of. He was doing anything but that in this series.
Horrible.
He was complete garbage. He was horrible. I would get off him immediately if I can. And you should. And you got to build around Wembanyama, Castle, and Harper is what I would suggest. And then finally, Brunson. That was the game that he was like, I'm not going to allow this series to go an extra game. I don't want to go back to the Garden. I want to end it here tonight. I'm not going to be denied. I'm going to be inevitable. And I'm going to prove to the world, well, I'm the best basketball player in the world. And he put that on. 45 points, 14 of 27 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3, 13 of 15 from the line. And he did everything in his power to win that game. And that's why he was the NBA Finals MVP. He was the NBA Cup MVP. He was the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And finally, he was the NBA Finals MVP. For that kind of performance, for doing what he was doing all season long, putting up big numbers, especially in the fourth quarter. He played almost the entire game, 41 minutes, and he put the team on his back doing what he does best. And that team as a collective unit, not just Jalen Brunson, was enough to win them their first championship in 53 years. And it was just I let my emotion go. After I saw the final, because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I was just so happy and just because I never thought I would see it, because this team, they haven't made it to a final since I was born. So I literally waited my entire life to see the Knicks make it that far. So I was overcome with emotion. I was just overcome with the fact that I knew the team didn't, I said it many times before, and I'll say it again. I never gave up on them because they never gave up on me. And it was just so cool to see. And I it's still settling in for me too, because I
can tell.
I can't believe that they actually won, because I didn't think I would ever see them win. And now I'm I'm greedy. All I wanted to see was one, but now I'm greedy. I want to win back-to-back titles. And one more thing that I want to say, and I think this is well deserved. Alec can attest to this. Victor Wembanyama, for as young and talented as he is a dirty player. He's immature, and like that's only going to hurt him for like in his future. He's no Tim Duncan, because Tim Duncan, you know what he would have done if he lost a finals like this? He would have taken it with humility. He would have taken it with grace, and that's why he was a humble player. And that's why everybody loved him. He ended up winning 5 championships, and like he would never complain. He was never immature. He never got in anyone's face. He never complained to the refs. He never did any of that. And he's a 5-time NBA champion. And Victor Wembanyama will never win an NBA title if he continues to act like the way he plays, how he acts, saying, "I'm in your head" to Mitchell Robinson. Well, guess what? Who's in your head now, boy? Huh? Jalen Brunson and the Knicks are, and you'll never get over it. You want to know why? Because you let your own mentality and your immaturity get to you, and you are a dirty player, and you know you are, and the league knows that he is, but they chose not to give Victor Wembanyama the fouls that he absolutely deserved. In that game, I think it was game 3, throwing Brunson to the ground, no call. The review afterwards, and then decided, it's not even a common foul, garbage. The game after, flagrant foul, clear flagrant foul, where he elbowed, I forget who it was, in the face, no call. The referee's right in front of him. Another flagrant foul, and Alec knows this. Like he landed in Brunson's landing spot, stepped on his foot, no call. He should have been suspended for 2 games. He had 3 flagrant points. He should have been called for 2 flagrant fouls in that final game, and Alec knows it. Right, Alec?
Yeah, we saw it with our very own eyes that the league's getting away with a bunch of horse you-know-what with a bunch of non-calls. It's a much larger issue that we can speak on, but Wembanyama definitely should have gotten suspended after game 3 for that blatant shove, and game 5 for stepping on Brunson's landing area with his shoe front and foremost. That was the old Zaza Pachulia play when Kawhi Leonard landed on Zaza's foot. That was a flagrant front and center. The league knows it. Everyone knows it. And what did the refs? And what did the league do? Let's go gambling! Oh, dang it!
I was saying, and like I would say I'm joking when I say it, but I think that the refs are phoning it in and fixing it to where like they want this series to be extended because they want to have more ratings, more companies and Victor Wembanyama to keep playing, because they knew that the rule was that they had to be suspended if he got another flagrant, and they knew that it was a flagrant, and they chose not to suspend him, and it's their rule. They chose not to enforce their own rules. Why even just get rid of the rules if that's going to be the case? Because I don't even care. If it happened to Brunson, fine. That's the rule. I'm cool with it. I know other guys are going to step up. If Wembanyama is going to get suspended, cool, because the Spurs should have guys like Dylan Harper who could step up. That can't be an excuse for why this league is just egging it on, and like they're basically enabling him to continue the way that he's playing. And like I didn't even mention him lunging at OG Anunoby's leg. If he's in contact with his leg, he could have given it a torn Achilles. That was game 4. That was the big comeback, and OG proceeded to have the best game of his life. Instant karma right there, because that should have been, that was clear intent from my eyes, and obviously I'm biased, but clear intent, like, because that was not setting a screen in my opinion. He wasn't pushed. He was doing it all for show, in my opinion, and he should have got 2 more flagrants in the final game. He's a dirty player. He's immature. He will never get to where he wants to be unless he overcomes and handles his maturity better. And then even like after the press, he's like, "See you never," and then like respectful to the press. I don't care who you are. If you lost, any player with any sort of respect and integrity and level of maturity would have taken it on the chin, congratulate the Knicks for doing what they did, not even shaking their hand after the game. You know, we got beat. They were just a better team. We didn't execute down the stretch. And like, you know, I think there was definitely things I could have done better, but we got to give them credit. Like the Knicks, they played like they wanted to win, and we simply just didn't do that. That's what you should have said. Instead, you don't give credit to anybody on the Knicks. You don't blame yourself. You only give credit to your own teammates. You don't credit the way that the Knicks team has played. You don't criticize your own mistakes. You just say like, whenever we're gonna come back from 3-1, everybody knows that we're gonna do it. Coming back from 3-1 down, even one team in this entirety of existence has done it. And so I'm like, yeah, you're fried, you're cooked.
Zero accountability. Zero accountability.
Accountability, zero level of maturity. You will never win an NBA title if you continue to play and act that way. And I can guarantee you that, like right here on the show, you will never win a title if you act like that. Look at James Harden. Look at Russell Westbrook. Two guys who I can that same kind of mentality to. Both of those guys, including Victor Wembanyama, will never win a championship with that kind of immaturity and lack of accountability. And that is my firm belief.
That's a mic drop moment there. Oh, and side note, that aura gamble from Wembanyama, I can also attest to aura gambles that aged completely poorly because look at John Tortorella. I'm leaving my clothes back in Raleigh for Game 7. Well, guess how that guarantee went out? Shutout in Game 6 on the road at Las Vegas. Didn't even get to see a Game 7. Now you have to call the hotel to pick up your clothes over there and ship them off to wherever your next destination is because you're not coming back to Las Vegas. Yes, I'm saying this because Ryan Craig is the next head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. You speak of our gambles that age poorly, but let me say this first and foremost about the San Antonio Spurs. I'm not going to say that they're going to be back because unless drastic changes are made about the San Antonio Spurs with the direction they're headed, maybe the coach, this young core which they're going with, if they're going to ship off De'Aaron Fox or something, unless drastic changes are made, you don't come back from this ever. One choke happens all the time. 4 chokes in the same series should have people getting fired for this. Mitch Johnson should have been gone here. De'Aaron Fox, in a normal world, he may have played his way out of San Antonio, but San Antonio has no intention of keeping him. Well, guess what? You're going to have to deal with this extension too. So if you're having the chance to have him bounce back, we'll see how that goes. But if he goes the way that he does in the finals, good luck dealing with that. Because Dylan Harper's waiting on the bench, ready to take advantage, and he's going to become a future superstar. I think he should be starting on the starting 5 for San Antonio.
He's incredible.
Yes.
He's incredible. I think this should be the move that gets the Spurs championship window up and going. But what I will never understand is why the Spurs passed up on Michael Malone when the opportunity was there and pick Mitch Johnson, their hand-picked head coach, by the way, to be their new head coach on a full-time basis.
Yeah. I'll tell you what right now. The Spurs have a lot of work to do, especially Mitch Johnson. Like, they're a young team, but clearly their flaws showed in the NBA Finals. And a lot of people were like, I'll tell you this right now. The NBA Finals this year were the highest NBA Finals rankings and ratings and viewership in the last 30 years because the New York market was involved. If the New York market was involved, they're going to tune in to see their Knicks play.
Oh, yeah.
The Spurs had a good young team. And yes, I picked them to win the NBA Finals. I said it on record, and I was wrong. But you know what? I'm happy that I was wrong because the better team won. And that's why the New York Knicks are NBA champions. Now, one last thing I want to say to wrap this up. Kevin, can you see the Knicks repeating?
I think a lot of stuff has to go right in the offseason because James Dolan has set on record that he isn't going to go into the second apron. So that tells me that that in order to bring back this core, the same core, to run it back, if they're going to do that, then I would guess that Karl Anthony Towns and Josh Hart have to do what Jalen Brunson did, which is sacrifice and both take a pay cut if they want to keep this core going for at least 3 to 4 or 5 more years. Because after this championship and the way that Jalen Brunson sacrificed and took a $113 million pay cut, because if he didn't do that, then we wouldn't have gotten the ability to extend or sign OG Anunoby. We wouldn't have gotten the ability to extend Mitchell Robinson for 2 more years or Landry Shamet for another year. Because of his sacrifice, then that was enough money to where the Knicks saved it up to where they can build this core and they could build a championship level roster. But to do it again for another year, back-to-back years, some of those guys, like I mentioned, Cat and Hart, are both going to have to make sacrifices and take pay cuts because I've read somewhere that Cat is projected to have an extension of 5 years, $272 million, something like that in that realm. if you're going to do that, then Cat has to be willing to sacrifice and to take a pay cut, or you can do what I suggested in the middle of the trade deadline and go trade Cat for Giannis. And I think I went on record saying that if they win the NBA Finals, I don't know if you can do that anymore. But if Cat isn't willing to take a pay cut, then I think that Leon Rose has to make the harsh decision to let Cat go and to let maybe I stated this as a potential trade scenario for Giannis. I would say the Bucks can't say no to this either. I would suggest if they're going to go after Giannis, to offer Cat, Deuce McBride, Tyler Kolek, and picks. And you can throw Diawara in there. That's what I would do, because the Bucks can't say no to that for two reasons. Number one, if you get Cat, you get the best center duo in the NBA. You get Cat and Miles Turner. That's great. And you get two guys who can shoot the ball and distribute the ball with Tyler Kolek and Deuce McBride. You already have Kyle Kuzma on the team. I think Ryan, whatever his name is, he's a really good shooter. Yeah, exactly, Rollins. And you can and the draft picks. You can get our first 2 draft picks. Those picks you can build around to be around Cat as your big centerpiece of your team. They can't say no to that. So if the Knicks offer something like that, I think Giannis is ours. And I think that is going to be, how the Knicks are going to repeat again, unless guys like Cat and Hart can both take pay cuts. And I'll say a final thing. This Knicks team, to quote the radio voice of the Knicks, Tyler Murray, this 2026 Knicks team will forever be remembered as the team that proved that no lead is too big and that no guard was too small.
Yeah. Becky Hammond is probably having a good day, isn't she?
Well,
Screw her.
who's having a much better day? Spider-Man.
Yes.
Well, of course, he's definitely celebrating on the streets with his Knicks. Somewhere, J. Jonah Jameson's feeling like, what's this guy doing here? And Spider-Man acting like he's a Knicks fan. He is a Knicks fan.
Yes. He is. Wow. We went well over 2 hours, but you know what? This whole thing of reflecting was absolutely worth it. Okay. So, next week, we're going to get back into our old format. We're going to get back into our old groove. But we had to relish in the moments here, because Kevin and Alec deserved these championships so badly. They absolutely deserved it. And John seeing the Seahawks win the Super Bowl earlier this year, so it was only fitting.
Hopefully we'll look back on this, Matt, and then we'll get ready for first celebration for you if the Yankees win the World Series.
I hope so. I would love nothing more than to see my Yankees win the World Series. And I know they're your Yankees too, but like in the context of what's happened over the last few months, this would mean so much to me. I wasn't even now. Full disclosure, I got into sports very late in life. I started watching sports when I was 14. So I didn't watch the 2009 World Series. I was an infant when the Yankees were on that three-peat. So to see the Yankees actually win a World Series, and please, if it's going to happen, I don't want to face the godforsaken, idiotic Dodgers, because I've had it with them. And it would just mean so much to me. And I'd probably cry tears of joy. Probably the same tears I cried when I saw the Giants win the Super Bowl.
I would too. I mean, I know I cried tears of joy when the Knicks just won it. They're only my third favorite team of all time. In order, my top 3 favorite teams are from third to first are the Knicks 3, Giants 2, and the Yankees 1. So I would be right there.
Yeah. That's kind of the same. Yankees 1, Giants 2, in my opinion. That's how it is. And then and then it's it's 1, 2, and then there's everything else.
Pretty much.
So, Lord, if you're watching this, I don't know why I'm looking up. Please give the Yankees a title. It would literally, I would do anything and everything for a Yankee championship. I'm saying this on record.
Even go on another beer mile.
Yes, I'm going on another beer mile if the Yankees win the World Series. Yes, I will go on a beer mile if the Yankees win the World Series. No F's given.
There you go.
There
That's
you
what I'm talking
go.
about. That's what I'm talking about. There
I
you
will
go.
do it. I'm not even joking. Like, I will do it. I'll put it on record.
That's what I'm talking about. You don't quit on them. Don't quit on them like me with the Knicks. Don't quit on them. Don't quit on them because if they don't quit, then you shouldn't quit. And that's why I had that no quit mentality when I've been watching this team. So like, stay in there, Matt, because it will come. If you
Same with
believe
the
it will.
Hurricanes. Same with the Hurricanes. I didn't give up on the Canes because the Canes didn't give up on me.
That's right.
You know, there's a quote out there where I forget who says it, but the quote is, "Good things come to those who wait."
That's right.
Yes.
And that's what I got to do. Just got to wait a little bit longer. That's all I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one last thing before we officially go, we got to promote our good friend David Smith's Armchair's book, which you can find on armchaircraig.gumroad.com. That is the fantasy football draft kit for 2026. Stop chasing and start winning. If you want expert analysis from Armchair, if you want tiers list and what you can do for both Dynasty and Standard Fantasy Football Leagues, this is the book for you. You can get, again, on armchaircraig.gumroad.com. But anyways, from Kevin and Alec, I'm Matt Sirianni. God bless you all for tuning in to today's episode of Foursquare Sports. We'll be back again next week. The 4th of July, we're going to have a meeting about that because the 4th of July falls on a Saturday. I don't know what we're going to do about that. We'll have a private discussion about that before we announce anything. But yes, we are here to stay for the summer. The World Cup and MLB coverage will be around for, so no need to worry about that. But anyways, this has been Foursquare Sports, which is sports at score. Take care, everybody. Have a good night, Knicks Nation, Canes Nation. This is for you. Good night.
Hi, everybody. Christopher Mad Dog Russo here. And you know what I do? Foursquare Sports on Sunday nights, 6 to 8, with all those parts of the country taken care of. Listen all the time. You got it. Mad Dog on Mad Dog Unleashed. Listen to my guys. Listen to my guys.